Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto severs all ties with Konoha. Part 2. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. A lone figure clad in the trademark red cloud black cloak of the Akatsuki waited under the stunted pine tree. A small purple frog with orange markings appeared with a poof bearing a scroll. The Akatsuki knelt to take the scroll. A bitten thumb swiped against the blood seal allowed the scroll to be opened and read. Do you know what the scroll contains? The frog nodded. Hi. Jiraiya says it is time to clean house. A slow nod was the response the summoned creature got. Tell Jiraiya I will be ready. 3 months later one particular Konoha shinobi worked his way through a pile of paperwork in the Hokage's office. Tsunade sighed and studied the spiky blonde head, guilt and anger filling her heart. I cannot change your mind, can I? It was a statement, not a question. Naruto lifted his head. Usually bright expressive blue eyes were polished stones. I worked my ass off for this village. I nearly killed myself to bring Sasuke back alive and the village and council nearly executed me for hurting their precious Uchiha traitor. He shook his head. I cannot take it anymore, Ba-chan. I gave and hoped that one day the village would see me as more than just the Kyuubi, but now I see it as a futile dream. Like your dream to be Hokage? Tsunade challenged the Chunin. Of all his friends only Naruto was still Chunin. Mainly because Konoha's council refused to support recommendations for his promotion to Junin rank. Naruto smiled sadly. It is a fool's dream. If they cannot see me after all I've done. I took down 2 Akatsuki down all by myself, you know. And the council insisted on giving credit to those Anbu you sent since a mere Chunin could never defeat an S-rank Nukenin. And those bastards didn't show up until everything was over. He pinched the bridge of his nose. I trained for months to fight them, you know. To survive, to bring Sasuke back. He straightened his back. Well, Sasuke is back in Konoha. Orochimaru is dead. Itachi is presumed dead. Akatsuki is no more. I see no point in staying. Tsunade scrambled for something. Anything. But what about your friends? What about Hinata? She knew Naruto had started dating the Hyuga heiress few months after he returned from his second training trip with Jiraiya. Tsunade shivered as the temperature literally dropped in the room. Naruto shifted slightly before speaking. I suppose you haven't heard, but Hinata broke up with me. A vicious grimace twisted his lips in a caricature of a smile. Her clan could not tolerate her continued association with one such as myself. Since that seems to be the common belief in Konoha, I'd rather take my tainted self away from this village so they no longer have to suffer my presence. Oh Naruto. Don't feel sorry for me, Ba-chan. Just sign the damn papers and let me go. But what if I give you a free travel pass? Tsunade tried to get the blonde to bend. No thanks. Travel passes means I'm still tied to this village. I don't want to owe anything to Konoha. Wood splintered under clenched fists. I'm dying bit by bit here, Ba-chan. If you don't let me go I am probably going to snap and start killing like Jiraiya used to. Tsunade studied the boy, no the man, she loved as a little brother. Most shinobis generally had a counselor or at least friends they could talk to, but Naruto never did. He could not open up to the regular counselors who looked upon him with disgust and loathing. The old rookies were acquaintances, not trusted friends. The only one he confided in would be Jiraiya because the Gamma Sannin put his student above Konoha. In recent years Naruto had pulled back from everyone in the village, Tsunade, Shizune and Iruka included. He didn't trust them to give him a higher priority than the village, and he was right. Konoha came first. Tsunade nodded slowly. Give me 2 hours. Send Jiraiya to me as soon as possible. Naruto rose and bowed his head before vanishing in a swirl of air and leaves. Tsunade pulled out a particular scroll and unsealed several thick files. Reports on the attacks and assassination attempts one Uzumaki Naruto experienced at the hands of Konohans, attackers that were never prosecuted or punished. Her anger and distaste grew. The best revenge she could get was to make sure her little brother got free of Konoha, free without the idiots on the council marking him as a Nukenin. A sly smile curled her lips as she considered the best way to do this. She was lost in thought when a cheery greeting brought her to reality. You called Tsunade Heim? Oh, Jiraiya. Yeah, I wanted to see you. Her expression turned sober. Has Naruto talked to you? About what he wants? The Gamma Sannin's expression turned very neutral. About resigning his shinobi status? Hi. And if you have any brains and common decency you'll help him. But he will never be able to return. Jiraiya interrupted her gently but firmly. He doesn't want to. Even I can see he has no reason to. You and I are respected and highly sought after whenever we return to Konoha after a long trip. Naruto. Naruto only gets spit in the face and attacked. His property is stolen or destroyed. He is only human Suheim and all humans have their limits. Tsunade nodded slowly. I understand that, Jiraiya, but I don't want Naruto to be marked as a Nukenin and put in the bingo books. The council must not have any legal means to go after him. Jiraiya's expression turned very serious. Strip him of his shinobi status and banish him. Get the daimyo to revoke his citizenship status. Tsunade's eyes went very wide. Don't worry about him. He already has honorary citizenship in many other countries, Wave and Spring included. Even Suna if he needs it. But don't let anyone find out until it is a done deal and Naruto is out of Fire Country. A chill ran down Tsunade's spine. But that is so final. I know. His father would not want this. Sensei would not want this. They are dead and have no say. We are alive. Jiraiya was brutal in his honesty. Frankly, I'm more concerned about Naruto's sanity than old promises that were never honored or ones that should never have been made. Seeing her hesitancy, Jiraiya softened. He will always call you Ba-chan, he will never cut ties with Tsunade. Just with Konoha. Tsunade nodded. All right, I'll do it. Tsunade heaved an internal sigh of relief. Just the usual closing comments and this bloody council meeting would be over. Godem-sama, there is a matter of concern that has not been addressed. Tsunade turned cool eyes to the sweaty fat civilian, some guildhead. Really? What is it that has you so concerned? Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade raised an arched brow. Taking this as an invitation to continue, the civilian continued. He has been missing from Konoha for some weeks now. According to the mission reports, he has not taken any assignments that would take him outside Konoha. No one has any information on his whereabouts. I would like to move to have him marked as a Nukenin. Honey eyes iced. Uzumaki Naruto is of no concern to this council. But Godem. Uzumaki Naruto is of no concern to Konoha and Fire Country. I have discussed the matter with the daimyo and he agreed with me. Naruto has been stripped of his shinobi status and Fire Country citizenship. Cold eyes stabbed each of her most vehement opponents. In the past she had to tread lightly, fearful that they would retaliate against her loved ones, but now she had no hostages. Jiraiya and Shizunes were the only ones she still cared for, and both were not vulnerable to the council machinations. My last communique put him in Nami since he accepted the honorary citizenship they pressed on him for saving their country from Gatu when he was a mere genin. Hyuga Hiyashi stilled. Godem, you can't be serious. I let the shinobi who was betrayed time and time by his own comrades and this village leave with his honor and freedom intact. Tsunade smirked. The daimyo agreed with my decision. He felt Sarutobi did very badly by giving in to this council's demands and turning a blind eye to the inhumane treatment Naruto received growing up. The two of us decided it is illegal and dishonorable to execute a loyal shinobi for the crime of being too strong, but since neither of us wanted to force Naruto to stay in Konoha, and take the chance of him snapping under the unrelenting blind hatred of the ignorant bigots who live in this village. If he ever gives in to the rage that any human in his shoes must be feeling at this point, he will be far more destructive than the Kyuubi because he has the mind, intelligence, and allies of a human. She felt pride, satisfaction seeing the terror on their faces as they realized just what they had created by their actions. She took a long sip of water before continuing. Uzumaki Naruto is currently based out of Nami as a bounty hunter, and he has agreed to avoid Konoha shinobi and Fire Country. He has sworn he will not attack any Konoha shinobi or Fire Country civilians unless he or his is attacked first. And I trust his word of honor more than I trust most of you. Her smile was more of a deathhead's grin. If he kills or maims any Konoha shinobi, it will be considered as a righteous kill due to interference on Konoha's part. Unfortunate but expected due to our shinobi lifestyle. The smile bloomed into full vengeance. In addition, Princess Yuki of Snow Country, now known as Spring Country, has given Naruto citizenship in her country as well and appointed him as a royal liaison. She has given him diplomatic immunity status usually given to ambassadors. Any country that has a treaty with Spring has to respect that. That includes us since the daimyo is not willing to risk losing cheap foodstuff imports from Spring Country. Several faces turned several shades whiter when they realized the full implications of the Godem words. Uzumaki Naruto was out of their reach. They could not touch him without being executed for treason by the Hokage and the daimyo. Uzumaki could go to their enemies and sign up as a mercenary or even register as a shinobi and they could not do anything. Nara Shikaku shifted uneasily. Godem, this was not a good decision. Oh, I agree, Shikaku. It completely sucks for Konoha. We lose a powerhouse, a shinobi who killed two S-class Nuknins on his own. One who was completely devoted to Konoha. The one who changed my mind about becoming Hokage, but you know what? She leaned forward. I don't care. You fucked up big time. If it comes and bites Konoha in the ass, well, whoop-de-doo. She leaned back in her chair. If you are so scared, spend your own money to hire shinobis but don't expect them to return. She studied her polished nails. Naruto is very good. He's never been given anything in his life. He's always fought and shed blood, sweat and tears to develop his skill. No Chunin instructor or Junin in Konoha bothered teaching him a damn thing. He had to teach himself the basics that most academy students are drilled in, bits and pieces of whatever he found in different places or cobbled together through observation. Unlike spoilt clan brats who had the full benefits of specialized teachers, clan techniques, and early training. Several counselors winced at that jab regarding Uchiha Sasuke. Satisfied, the Godem relaxed minutely. He has no reason to stay in Konoha. His first girlfriend broke up with him, and given the way most people feel about him, he will never find another one and have his own family. His friends have abandoned him, only going to him when they need help, never supporting him or his dreams. This council has refused to promote him to Junin despite all his successes. He succeeded in bringing back a traitor who was promptly reinstated and promoted above him while he was fined for using excessive force, for defending his own life. The few people who do care for him have their own lives and concerns. Would you stay in such a village? Several of the clan leaders turned away shame-faced. Everyone knew it was wrong. Reinstating the Uchiha after such light punishment for such a serious crime. For punishing the one responsible for retrieving the precious Sharingan Kekai Genkei, but none had supported the furious Godem. They did not wish to use their political leverage in what was of little import to them. The representatives of the minor clans that did support the Hokage, Inuzuka and Aburame, were smiling sadly. Tsunade shook her head. This matter is closed. If I find anyone authorizing missions concerning Naruto, even ones to change his mind, I will execute the one responsible, clan head or no. Cold eyes settled on Hyuga Hiyashi. Any shinobi who accepts such missions will not receive any medical treatment from Konoha medics and subject to 1 month in Ibiki's tender care. Any medic nin who dares treat the shinobis involved will be stripped of his or her license. All involved will have their chakra vessels sealed for 2 months and subject to 6 months of D-class unpaid missions. Eyes were wide at the harsh defined punishment. Unlike Sarutobi-sensei, I will enforce this. The daimyo fully supports me on this matter. And do not imagine you can hide anything. With Akatsuki Gon Jiraiya has decided to devote his intelligence gathering to traitors and lawbreakers within Konoha. He is especially keen to track all those who would dare harm his student, most likely his only living student since he will never teach another from Konoha. Naruto frowned at his dish of sake. It wasn't very high grade and it would take gallons to have any real effect on him. He often found it was an effective way of encouraging opponents and informants to underestimate him. He wondered what the hell was delaying the freelancer Gamiko had promised him. Naruto knew he was good, and with Kage Bunchins he could easily duplicate an army to take out any gang of bandits or regular Nuknins. Unfortunately, this group he was after was modeled on the Akatsuki fashion, invitation only, nins with high-ranked combat experience and varying specializations. All experienced shinobi knew the weakness of Kage Bunchins, and Naruto had not quite mastered the Hiraishin to be all over the place, as it were. He needed a partner for this job. Unfortunately, there were few with the necessary skill level he trusted, so he had been forced to go to Gamiko, an intermediary who specialized in introducing parties. A few days ago, Gamiko had sent a message with a date, time and place. As he waited, his memory drifted over the past few years. The first few weeks out of Konoha he had been terrified, waiting to see if the council had somehow found a loophole and sent Anbu after him. Or if some wealthy civilian with a grudge decided to put a contract on his life. Or if Ba-chan changed her mind, or was forced to, and authorized a Black Ops mission to execute him. After 3 months he relaxed and began to enjoy life. Bounty hunting as an independent was tiresome work because he had to do everything himself. Naruto found himself depending heavily on the network of contacts and friends he had all over the elemental countries. Hours watching Jiraiya manage his espionage network came very handy as Naruto created a similar latticework around himself. When he came into information on smaller heads, he made a tidy profit by selling the information to other independents without his information network. Information and people were crucial in this business. As long as you knew what people were working towards, you could generally predict their actions. This group, Kuroakuma, they had none of the grandiose schemes of Akatsuki. It made them less and more dangerous than the Biju collectors. Too bad none of the intel ops of the hidden villages had picked up on them. They already had done quite a bit of damage in several trade routes and smaller economies. Luckily their operations were basically run by 3 intelligent heads. With all 3 heads gone, the body would die just like any other animal. Naruto-san? The spider sent me. A quiet feminine voice barely discerned against the general noise. Naruto inhaled deeply. She had barely registered on his senses. Her chakra control was exceptional to have mimicked a civilian. He would have assumed her to be a waitress if it wasn't for the faint scent of weapons polishing oil drifting from her. Slowly he turned halfway and scanned her. She was standing about 4 feet away. A respectful distance to give just enough warning room for both parties if one decided to attack. If he was to sum up her description in a few words, Naruto would say, deadly and beautiful elegance, and be quite accurate. Her body was slender and toned under the tight-fitting, well-used armored brown leather garments and boots. Over that she wore a mottled olive-green canvas coat treated to be water-resistant. Her weapons pouches were a lighter brown and her weapon harnesses and belts were black. Naruto was certain she was concealing more under the voluminous coat. Given the scuff marks on her outfit, Naruto was quite sure she was very good. Her face was the kicker. Almost triangular with fine porcelain skin stretched over delicate fragile bones. Almond-shaped slanted black eyes set under fly-away dark brows. Long strands of silky black hair escaping from the neat coronet of braids wrapped around her head to frame her face. He could see the flash of steel senbon used to secure the braids. She reminded him of someone, but Naruto wasn't quite sure who. Oh well, it would come to him sooner or later. Besides, he was more worried about Operation Hydra. Your name? Naruto had given up on making friends at first meetings. He preferred to reserve judgment before reaching out. She bowed her head. Call me Habara. Gameco's local agent can vouch for me. Naruto nodded curtly. Watanabe was a sneak and a coward and a very bad liar, since Naruto could literally sense lies using his Kyuubi augmented senses. In the weeks after he left Konoha, he had discovered his sensitivity had increased several-fold. A meeting with the fox left him feeling the furball wasn't so bad after all. He had agreed to augment Naruto's body enough so the deteriorating side effects of channeling the dense red chakra would be greatly reduced. All Naruto had to do was to open his senses to the Yoko, so the Biju could receive some sensory input and the emotional benefits. Of course it meant the fox often egged him into bedding every attractive female just so he could enjoy the endorphins and sensations. Naruto did not mind too much. He had found women outside Konoha found him very attractive. With his loyalties to Sakura and Hinata gone, he had little reason to restrain himself from enjoying the pleasures of the flesh. Firmly he pushed the idea of bedding Habara out of his mind. She was going to be his partner. If she was good, it could lead to a more permanent arrangement, and Naruto wasn't going to toy with someone who could cause him a great deal of physical damage. Oh, it would heal, but the annoyance just wasn't worth it. Carefully he pushed himself off the stool. Let us walk, Habara-san. Some fresh air will do me good. She did not say anything but followed his lead. That was one point in her favor. Most women were complete bitches when you were short with them. At least this one was professional. Both of them knew small talk was pointless. They would know each other better after a practice spar. Naruto had a vague feeling he would be working with Habara for a long time. Naruto watched his partner drink steadily. She had already polished off 2 jugs of sake by herself and was nearly finished with her third. The last job had been ugly. Child prostitution wasn't something that could be prettied up, and for some reason it hit Habara hard. Probably some female thing. They had come to an understanding of each other's limits in the months they worked together, but Naruto did not delude himself into believing he knew everything about his partner. The blonde squinted through the dim light of the not-so-high-class tavern. The acoustics of their booth and the sound-canceling jutsu barrier guaranteed their privacy, so he blurted out the question that had been plaguing him. "Habara-chan, would you mind if I ask you a question?" "Ask away, Naruto-kun." She always insisted on using the affectionate suffix, though she never indicated in other ways that she had emotional ties with him. Oh, they trusted, respected and liked each other. But for both of them the past was taboo. The present and immediate future was all that mattered. "Are you related to the Uchiha clan of Konoha? You look like the Teme." She stilled. "Teme?" she inquired. "Uchiha Sasuke. Old teammate. Spoiled brat and all-around bastard. Went traitor and put a hole in my chest. Chased him for years because I promised. When I finally succeeded they closed me out, kicked me to the curb." Naruto explained vaguely. "Don't blame you if you are an Uchiha. It's not like you can choose your parents, you know." She blinked. Naruto saw two glittering trails down her cheek. Before he could apologize and tell her she didn't have to tell him anything, she spoke. "My father was." Her voice hardened. "He was a complete bastard. I was happy when Uchiha Itachi slaughtered the clan." She looked at him carefully through the corner of her eye to study his reaction. Naruto blinked. "If you say so." He tapped his finger against the age-smoothened tabletop. "I never quite understood Itachi though. He didn't seem like the type to just snap. And his excuse, testing his limits? Bullshit. He had another reason." Habara blinked. "What do you mean, Naruto-kun?" Naruto sipped his sake and gathered his thoughts. "What do you know of Itachi?" "Just that he was a prodigy, a genius who climbed through the ranks to become Anbu captain at 13. At 14 he slaughtered his clan, leaving only one survivor, his younger brother. Then he joined Akatsuki, an organization that was collecting the bijous. After the organization was destroyed he vanished. His body was never found, unlike most of his old allies." Naruto nodded. "Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. But Itachi was one of the most apathetic people I'd met. He said he wanted to test his limits, but slaughtering a clan of cheap copycats who've rested on their laurels so long. I don't think so. He would have just gone rogue, taunting Konoha by thrashing every single Oinen and Anbu team sent against him. He would have tested and penetrated the defense of every hidden village so he could fight the best of the best. The Uchihas must have done something really bad to so thoroughly piss him off. The question is what?" Habara did not say anything for a while. "Uchiha Itachi is the only one who can answer that question." "Yeah, I suppose. Too bad he's probably hiding somewhere far away. It probably would be nice to spar with him without having the whole killing each other issue." "You want to talk to him? But why? Itachi is a human being who was probably given a shitty hand like most of us. He probably did what he felt he had to do in order to survive. I just want to know what could have been so bad that he slaughtered his own kin with no remorse. Only he can answer that." "Yeah, well, I'm done for the night. Can you look after yourself?" Habara snorted, a soft sound. "Of course, Naruto-kun." Naruto nodded and made his way to the bar to pay off the tab and give some quiet instructions to the bartender. Then he made his way up to his room on the 3rd floor. As usual, Habara had the connecting one next door. He stripped off his clothing, dropping them carelessly over a chair before falling into bed nude except for his boxers before pulling the blanket over his frame. A couple of hours later he came to with a jerk, flush of red chakra incinerating the effects of alcohol on his body. There was an intruder close by. "Naruto-kun?" It was Habara. Her chakra was fluctuating unevenly, quite unlike her. Probably the alcohol she had consumed. Her hair was disheveled and spilling down her back. At some point she had removed or lost the picks she used to secure her bun. He watched as she discarded her coat, then the close-fitting armored vest. She struggled with her boots before they too hit the floor with 2 soft thuds. Then she walked, nose swayed towards him. There was no power in her steps or restraint in her motions. Her entire body swayed slightly out of control as she carefully made her way to him. Her face was flushed pink. Sharingan was active from the lapse in chakra control. He had gotten used to it. For a long time he had been terrified. He had only seen the Sharingan in 2 faces, both of whom tried to kill him. Kakashi didn't count because he never really used the full-blown Sharingan against Naruto. Now it represented control, competence, constancy, camaraderie and companionship. What is it, Habara-chan? She managed to sit on the edge of the bed without losing her balance, though she refused to meet his eyes. There is something I have to tell you. After what seemed like eternity, she lifted Sharingan eyes to his blue ones. I am Itachi. Naruto stilled. What was she talking about? Itachi was a guy. He stared hard, going over what his senses were telling him. She was telling the truth, or she really believed it. But how could everyone have believed Itachi was a guy? Naruto's brain worked furiously. Alright, ignore that question and focus on the starting point. Assumption. Habara used to be the Nukenin Uchiha Itachi. Extrapolate. Everything shifted and formed a dazzling kaleidoscope before settling into a new pattern, one that was far more complete than the old picture. It all made a crazy kind of sense. But going back, how? Realizing she was near her breaking point, he scooted closer and wrapped his arms around her and settled her on his lap, tucking her head under his chin. Tell me everything, Habara. I won't tell anyone else. And then she spilled everything. Her most early memories growing up in Baron Barracks and raised as an automaton. The regular medical checkups. The near-constant training. Returning to the Uchiha clan house just before Sasuke was born. Being pushed and driven through the academy and up the ranks. Occasional blank spots in memories. Blank spots created when her controllers wiped out her memories when she had discovered her true. Going through puberty, feeling almost completely AUAL due to the treatment of hormones and drugs. Finding out about the truth and memory wipes soon after she turned 14 and deciding to slaughter the clan so they could not wipe her memories yet again. At the end of it, she was shaking and crying so hard she could barely speak. I knew I could not break the henge. It was a Fuin Jutsu and the only seals master I knew was Jiraiya, so I decided to join Akatsuki. But after a few months I realized there was no way I could just run off and hide, not when they actually had a chance at succeeding in collecting the bijus, so I started to pass information to Jiraiya. His inside informant. Hi. Once things started wrapping up, Jiraiya broke the henge and swore a blood oath to not reveal anything about Uchiha Itachi or Habara. Then I left. Naruto crooned softly, rocking the woman in his arms. Jiraiya kept his word. He did not breathe a single word to me or anyone else. He kept your secrets. I was worried for a while that he would tell the Godem. No, he doesn't trust the council. He never tells Tsunade anything he wants to be kept secret. Ba-chan would blurt it out if anyone asked her when she's drunk. Jiraiya is the type to owe loyalty to people. Besides, from his perspective, the Uchiha clan got what was coming to them with their illegal experimentation and child abuse. He doesn't have any tolerance for things like that. Not after Orochimaru. Habara nodded mutely. Then something came to mind. What are you going to do? What do you mean? Do you want to split up? I can understand. Hush. You did what you had to do to survive. Just like me. As far as I'm concerned, everything is square. Besides, his voice turned teasing. We make a pretty good team and I'd hate to break up. Habara laughed, a choked sound that gradually became genuine. What could she say to that? Especially since he was right. Habara frowned as she cleaned and polished her weapons while she waited for her lover and partner to collect the bounties on their latest heads. Bara-chan, we're done here. Deft hands slipped the kunai back into the quick-release holster and packed away her equipment in a sealing scroll that went into her satchel. 10 minutes later they were in a bar sipping sake warmed by Kaiden jutsus. The kunoichi noted Naruto's distant, blank expression. Did you get any flack from the clerk? She asked idly. Then what is riling you? Naruto hesitated before speaking. Do you like this life? Having no ties, no stable home? Owing nothing to any particular village? Constantly traveling? Habara stilled. She did not complain about the traveling because they had little choice. They had to go to where the work was. But it would become more difficult, especially if she became pregnant. And she would sooner or later. All forms of birth control had a failure rate. And factor in a Jinchuriki's sperm that most likely more potent than the average male. Not really. But why do you ask, Naruto-kun? Naruto ran a large hand through his messy hair. Curiosity. I've been thinking about the future. Bounty hunting is okay, but having the backup of a village would be better. Most shinobi villages consider their nins as tools to be used and discarded. I will not risk being treated that way ever again. I know. Trust me, I understand perfectly. That is why I think we should study the possibilities to see which village would suit us best. After several days of debate and data analysis, the pair came to a decision. Kumo is the best bet. They are desperate to have a strong Kekkei Genkei and higher profile with potential clients. Habara pointed out, they won't be able to resist the Sharingan and two skilled S-class nens. Their rakeage is getting old though. We'll probably have to deal with his successor in a few years. Naruto's nose wrinkled. Habara nodded slowly. True, but if we play our cards right we can make sure someone we like is nominated as the next rakeage. Naruto bit his lip. I'm not sure about Kumo's political structure. In Konoha the council has a great deal of influence. It is usually not the case in Kumo, but the rakeage is getting old and losing control. Habara explained. He was able to protect Ni Yugito, Jinchuriki to Nibi no Nekomata, throughout her childhood and early shinobi career. In fact, there is some gossip that she is one of the leading candidates to be the next rakeage. Naruto's eyes widened. Sugoi. They are seriously considering her as rakeage? Habara nodded. Hi. Kumo has strong nins but few have the spark, the drive and power to be Kage level. The clans have become proud and stale. The rakeage is desperate for fresh blood, new life. That is the only reason why he did not stop the Gokuro clan's attempt to kidnap the Hyuga heiress for the Byakugan. Naruto nodded slowly. He could see the rakeage's point of view. He wanted his village to become strong and reputable. If it was at the expense of another non-ally village, then so be it. Besides, wasn't that what all shinobi villages did? Okay, you've convinced me. A wide smile split his face. Let's go pay the rakeage a little visit to see if he's interested. Omada Hiroshi, Yandaime Rakeage, shivered slightly as he hunched over the newest paperwork in the cage tower. His old bones were too vulnerable to the biting chill of the tower set in one of the high peaks of Kumo. It was a strategic spot but better suited for young vigorous bodies. Carefully he put down his glass nib pen and turned his thoughts to his ever-present concern, his successor candidates. So far no clear candidates had caught his interest, though the clans continued to push their scions. Hiroshi himself favored his ward, Ni Yugito, who was Jinchuriki to Nibi no Nekomata. Like the Sandaime Hokage, he took up his old job when his old successor, and nephew, died sealing the Nibi inside his grandniece Yugito. Yugito was a superlative kunoichi, an excellent taiko on the battlefield, but she was not a leader. She did not have the charisma to draw attention or set hearts on fire. She was reserved and quiet. Oh, she was decisive and quick with orders when fighting, but she was more inclined to ignore what happened around her as no concern of hers. Not a good quality in a political leader or cage candidate. Even she herself admitted it. But as things stood, she was the only one he could trust Kumo to, someone who would not drain the village to benefit a select few. He wheeled around Kanai out when a soft polite cough broke the silence. He was tense but not too concerned. If it was an assassin he or she would never have coughed. Who is there? The shadows peeled away to reveal two forms that emerged from the darkness. A not too tall man with blonde spiky hair wearing a cloth half-mask veiling the lower half of his face. His lithe build was dressed in green camo pants, pouches on both thighs, black combat boots, a black turtleneck under a sand-colored trench coat. His companion, partner was obviously a kunoichi dressed in green cargo pants and black boots, a black t-shirt under a green camo jacket. She had long black hair twisted in a knot secured by chopsticks and senbons with long strands framing a pale aristocratic triangular face and almond-shaped black eyes. Neither of them bore a hite, even a scored one to mark them as Nuknins, but they were clearly shinobi trained. High-class ones given that they penetrated the rakeage tower without setting off any alarms. They also bore no killing intent. They wanted something. Feeling a tad more relaxed, the rakeage filled his pipe and lit it before taking a deep puff. What can I do for you? The pair glanced at each other before the blond man stepped forward. It is more like what we can do for you, Rakeage-sama. Rumi eyes narrowed sharply. Perhaps you can start with your names? The pair hesitated before answering. Naruto. Habara. The rakeage perked. Uzumaki Naruto? Of Konoha? The blonde stiffened. Formerly of Konoha. He corrected sharply before forcing himself to relax. Forgive my abruptness. I have almost no good memories of Konoha. Hiroshi nodded slowly. He had heard of how Konoha's Jinchuriki was treated. Fools, they did everything they could to anger the boy. It was a miracle he hadn't snapped years ago like the Godem Case Gaera. I can see. It was disturbing. Sarutobi was a fool. He watched his village prime an explosive tag and did nothing to stop them. Young man, you must have an iron will to have reached your current level with so little encouragement or backing. Naruto blinked and smiled hesitantly. Thank you. Hiroshi shook his head. It is no compliment. It is the truth. I've studied the historical data on Jinchurikis. Those treated reverently, with respect, they served their villages well, often becoming great leaders. It is those despised and hated who become insane and go on killing rampages that are so prominently noted in the records. He took a deep puff. I was determined to not let that happen to Yugito, so I was very strict about enforcing any law I made to protect her. In fact, I forced many of the clans to send their heirs for special training with Yugito. They grew up with her and treated her like any other high clan child. Whenever they heard uncomplimentary things, they were quick to speak in her defense. When they finally learned she was a Jinchuriki, it was something secondary, like a Kekai Genkei. All Kumo shinobis know she is a strong kunoichi and experienced taiko. They know she will not risk their lives for no good cause, that she will do her best to make sure her team returns alive. Naruto bowed his head. I heard that. Jiraiya, the Gama Sanin, he said that Akatsuki always hesitated going after the Nibi because Kumo shinobis were quick to react. The Raikage nodded. When they were active, Yugito spent more time doing missions requiring several squads. Akatsuki is good but not against a group that works like an oiled machine, or a Jinchuriki comfortable with drawing on 90% of the Biju's power without losing control. Especially Nibi. Naruto frowned then nodded. Nibi has control over the dead. Yes, Yugito can reanimate corpses to fight on her behalf. If the death is fairly recent and there is a medic to repair the injuries, she can force the soul back into the body. Naruto's eyes widened. Wow, the Raikage smirked. Yes, wow. It makes her a particular favorite of Kumo's shinobis. All the divisions know to make sure there is a good medic on her team. But enough about Yugito. Tell me about Uzumaki Naruto. What brings you here? Naruto glanced at his companion. You might not be aware of it, but I have left Konoha with the blessing of the Godem and Daimyo. I currently have dual citizenship with Wave and Spring Country. I have been working as a bounty hunter when I met Habara. After some discussion, we decided we wished to join a hidden village, Kumo by preference. His blue eyes were level. Habara is practically unknown to most villages, but I assure you she is a skilled kunoichi, S-class, better than me in technique in some fields. The Raikage almost dropped his pipe from shock. Tell me, why Kumo? Is it for vengeance? Do you hope to attack Konoha in the future using Kumo as a shield? Naruto shook his head. No, Konoha holds grudges. I do not. You tried to make your village strong by going through with the Hyuga kidnapping. Don't all villages destroy or steal the resources of others? Scrolls, jutsus, Kekai Genkeis, weapons, shinobis? You had no treaty with Konoha, you were there to sign one, but you hadn't. Hiroshi stared at the young man with thoughtful eyes. That is a very mature outlook. Naruto shrugged. Well, if I hated everyone who treated me badly, I would be full of nothing but bitterness. I've learned to let go and move on to survive. Besides, you are more worthy. You've treated Yugito a lot better than Konoha ever treated me. I think if I lived in Kumo I would have had a better childhood. Hiroshi could say nothing because it was the bitter truth. He cursed the long-dead Hokages, two particular ones who were responsible for the sufferings of this young man. The private speculation was looking to be more and more real. Uzumaki, could you do something for me? Naruto tensed warily. What? Remove your mask. Naruto blinked but obeyed. The stretchy material rested around his throat to reveal the chiseled features, the long nose, the wide sculpted mouth, the faint trio of lines around said mouth that resembled whiskers. A restless hand ran through the spiky blonde strands while the narrow eyes eyed the Raikage with veiled wariness. Omada Hiroshi nodded thoughtfully and took another deep puff. That explains it. Naruto exploded. Explains what? Why the Yondaime Hokage chose you. Hiroshi explained calmly. I met Namikaze Minato during the treaty talks after the Konoha-Iwa Wars. He was an honorable man, very forgiving and ready to look for the best in people around. He would never ask another to make a sacrifice when he could. The clay pipe tapped the surface of the heavy desk. You are very like him, like your father. Naruto froze. Hibara stared at Naruto. He had never told her. Naruto-kun, is this true? The Yondaime is your father? Naruto's shoulders went stiff before he turned to meet his lover's eyes squarely. I have no proof. No birth certificate, no clan scrolls, no letters. Nothing but what I look like. Jiraiya said I most likely am, but I refused to let him tell anyone, even Tsunade Ba-chan. If you think the fools in Konoha would have believed us, you are high on something. He laughed, a sharp barking sound. They would say I stole the Yondaime's appearance. Foxes are tricksters and illusionists, you know. Hiroshi coughed discreetly. It does not matter what Konoha says. I know our archives have several blood samples from Konoha shinobis. They were collected from the battlefields for our medics to study. He explained. I'm certain we have a sample for Namikaze Minato. He participated in a sparring duel with my old successor, Yugito's uncle. Hiriko used a Kusari Gama that drew blood. The blood sample would have been preserved. He smiled slyly. If it proves he sired you, you have every right to use the Namikaze name. It is not like there is a clan to protest it, no matter what Konoha feels. Naruto turned away, tears filling his eyes. All of Konoha denied him. And here a complete stranger acknowledged the possibility, was willing to help him prove his heritage. He looked at Hibara, who smiled with a warm understanding light in her usually cool eyes. I do not care if I marry Uzumaki Naruto or Namikaze Naruto. You are one and the same and I love you. She voiced her opinion and support. Naruto bowed his head briefly before straightening with fresh resolve. This proves my point, Raikage-sama. You are willing to see beyond the surface, to consider what most people would not. I would be honored to serve you as a Kumo Nen. Hibara stirred. But we are a bit concerned about your successor, the Rokudame. We would like to meet him or her before fully committing to Kumo. She shuddered. We will not risk being bound to serve one unworthy. A germ of an idea found root. Hiroshi smiled slowly. I have no fixed choice for my successor. Currently Yugito is the most suitable candidate. The couple looked at each other. Hibara spoke. Could we meet her? The Raikage knew if he pushed too hard he would lose them. The man would only serve those he cared for, the woman would follow him. Trying to bind these two would be like chaining the wind or binding lightning. Possible but eventually a futile endeavor. Of course. First let me prepare a set of visitors' papers for you two. For 2 months? That should be enough time for you to make a decision. He opened a few blank scrolls and began writing out the details of a visitor's pass. A slow smile spread across his face as he imagined the possibilities. They were looking for a place to put roots, to grow a family. The children of a Jinchuriki, an S-class shinobi, the potential was unlimited. This could be the source of the fresh blood he had been looking for. Shikamaru frowned as he stared down at the remnants of his cold dinner. The sauce was coagulating on the grilled meat. Eat up, Shikamaru, or I'll give your food to Choji. Ino threatened, shaking a fist. Shikamaru just pushed his plate to his Akamichi friend. You can have it, Choji. I don't feel that hungry anyway. Sakura looked at the strategic genius with some concern. The Nara had lost weight in recent months. What is wrong, Shikamaru? You haven't been going out on missions, but you've lost so much weight. The Konoha Junins looked at the Nara. They tried to get together for dinner at least once a month. This time Kiba, Neji and Lee were away on a tracking mission. Sasuke was never invited after the scene he made the first and only time Ino cajoled him into joining them. Tenten eyed the Nara with critical eyes. Sakura is right. Next time you have to go out in the field you'll pass out after just a few hours running. Haven't you been training? Shikamaru shook his head. Haven't had the time. I've been spending all my time analyzing the intel reports from months back. A frown creased his nose. Konoha is in trouble. What do you mean? Shino usually did not speak, but when he did he meant it. Shikamaru tapped the wooden surface beneath his hands and organized his thoughts. Have you heard of aka Arashi? Or Hanashin? Sakura shuddered automatically. Red Storm and Death Flower? Who hasn't? Every single Konoha shinobi who encountered them has died. And we still don't have a clue what they look like or anything else including their affiliation. Shikamaru shook his head. Now we do. They are Kumo elite. Bolt. Eyes widened. Bolt was the Kumo equivalent of Anbu. Usually any missions they undertook never created any ripples. Aka Arashi is Bolt? Ino was incredulous. I thought no one survived any encounter with the pair. How do you know? A scouting team doing recon had a branch house Hyuga with them. Shikamaru replied bluntly. He saw the attack used. It literally created a hurricane of cutting winds and red energy that overloaded or sliced everyone within several hundred yards. Only those in the eye of the storm were safe. While he attacked long range, she attacked close range. Hinashin is clearly a kenjutsu and ninjutsu specialist. A scalpel compared to aka Arashi's hammer. Once the field was clear, they joined a bolt team who followed their lead. I've been going over past reports where the enemy wasn't very clear. A lot of the shinobis who died opponents unknown were most likely killed by this pair. It is only recently, after that large-scale lethal massacre where those Kira Arashi attacks were used, that the names were discovered by intel operatives. Ino shook her head. I don't get it. If they have two really good nins, why isn't Kumo publicizing it to get missions? Shikamaru's eyes were solemn. They have Ino. Mainly in Iwa and countries without shinobi villages. I don't know if your dad has been complaining, but Konoha has been losing some large regular merchant contracts. The factors said they found another more reliable village. From the reports it is most likely Iwa or Kumo. Choji nodded slowly. A lot of merchants have been saying that. It's because Nami and Spring automatically increase the cost of any goods heading for Fire Country or Konoha. They have been giving merchants who hire shinobis from other hidden villages a discount. Ino stared confused. She knew prices had been increasing recently, but she never figured out why. But why? Sakura looked away, her mouth trembling. It was Hinata who answered, her eyes moist. It is because Naruto left Konoha. He has accepted citizenship in both those countries and they do not like Konoha anymore. She looked down at her clenched fist. I heard father speak of it. The daimyo and Godem are very angry with Konoha. Naruto asked Tsunade-sama to banish him so he could leave without being marked as a Nukenin. Everyone recoiled. They knew Naruto had left, but they figured it was just a long training trip. None had figured it was a permanent thing. But Naruto hadn't sent any letters. Ino turned to Sakura. That is just a joke, isn't it, forehead girl? Naruto always said he wanted to be Hokage. He wouldn't just up and leave. Sakura straightened her head and spoke, her voice thick with unshed tears. Hinata is right. He left. He didn't say anything to anyone but Tsunade-sama or Jiraiya-sama. Even Iruka-sensei and Tuchi-san and Ayame-san from Ichiraku's didn't know. But why? Tenten voiced the question on all their minds. Why would he leave? Sakura shook her head. I don't know. But even before that, Tsunade-sama stopped teaching me. Her long bangs hid her eyes. Shizune-san refused to tell me anything. I'm still a medic nin, but I learned through the hospital. I don't get any specialized training anymore. Haven't for a few years now. Shino nodded thoughtfully. That explains it. Everyone looked at him. Tsunade-sama blames you, and all of Konoha. In her eyes we are responsible for making Naruto leave. But we didn't do anything. Ino erupted furious. That is exactly it. We didn't do anything. Shikamaru's cool voice cut through the histrionics of the Yamanaka kunoichi. We didn't stay in touch with him. We didn't ask about him. We didn't talk to him. We didn't know he was unhappy in Konoha. Hell, we didn't suspect anything was wrong. Only Hinata and Sakura. Sharp eyes pinned the two kunoichis. Tell me, why didn't you two say anything? You two were supposed to know him best. Sakura, you were his genin teammate. Hinata, you were his girlfriend. They looked away. Hinata spoke first. I broke up with him. Father did not like me dating him. He said he was unworthy, a nobody. She silently begged for understanding, their support. He was beginning to respect me as a kunoichi. I didn't want to lose. So you threw Naruto away. Shikamaru concluded in patent disgust. He turned to Sakura. What about you? What did you do or not do? Then he shook his head. No, I don't have to be told. All you cared about was getting the Uchiha. You made Naruto promise. You ignored him except when the rumors about Sasuke reached you, then you guilted Naruto into chasing after the traitor. Whenever he returned empty-handed you berated him and put him down for failing. Sakura pushed her chair back and ran away crying. Shikamaru glared at Ino, cutting off her words of defense. Don't say a fucking thing, Ino. You know I'm right. Sakura ignored Naruto except when it was time to chase Sasuke. And when Sasuke was back in Konoha she dropped Naruto like a used tissue. He pushed his own chair back and stood up abruptly, throwing his chopsticks down with a clatter. Forget it. I understand perfectly why Naruto left Konoha. No one around here gave a damn about him. Us included. In the Hokage Tower, the Konoha Council was holding another more formal meeting. Godem-sama, what measures are being taken to eliminate aka Arashi and Hinashin? Tsunade eyed Hyuga Hiyashi and smiled maliciously. None. She waited for the uproar of protest to die before continuing. All Anbu sent against the pair have been eliminated. Not one has survived to return, make contact, send a message, anything. We would have to send at least 15 full squadrons to have a less than even chance of taking them out. Such a step would be an act of war. It would give Kumo the right to retaliate openly. If they send the pair against Konoha, we would be facing lesser version of the Yondaime Hokage. But we would be the Iwa Nens. Their techniques and teamwork is destructive on a massive scale. They can literally bring down the walls and storage silos from half a mile away. I will not risk dragging Konoha into a war we are not prepared for. That harsh reminder was enough to still most of the protest. Then what course of action remains? Aburame Shibi voiced the practical question. Avoidance. Tsunade replied bluntly. Nara Shikamaru has been analyzing past reports where the opponents were not so clear-cut. A clear pattern has emerged. 35% of Junins killed in the past year, opponent unknown, has been closed opponent known, aka Arashi or Hinashin. 80% of our shinobi's encounters with Kumo have ended in at least one death, 40% with only one survivor making the report. Kumo has been upping their shinobi training regimes. Even their Chunin teams are becoming lethal to an experienced Konoha Junin. They are using more and more new or never-seen jutsus, Fuden, Raiden, Kaden all blended to have effects our shinobis are not familiar with. Unfortunately, few survive to return and make a report so we can develop counters. The standard Doden mud wall is ripped to shreds by their attacks. Inochi shook his head. I don't understand how these two elites snuck up on us. Kumo has not produced any promising shinobis in years. None of their Chunins have made a good show at any of the exams. Tsunade leaned back in her chair. Jiraiya has a theory. They are not sending their real elites to the public Chunin exams. They are training them in private, in Kumo, sending them for quiet missions and wiping out all witnesses. Aka Arashi and Hinashin are simply the first making a big splash for Kumo's debut. She rubbed her forehead. Most of the guard contracts we've lost have definitely gone to Kumo. She snorted and shook her head. Certain unnamed Konohan individuals tried to change the merchants' minds by hiring shinobis to impersonate bandits. The Kumo Chunin and Genin guards slaughtered them. It is fortunate they had the brains not to take their Konoha Hidis with them. The whole council looked at each other. They had come to this meeting expecting to sign off on a S-class mission to assassinate aka Arashi and Hinashin. Now they find out things were a lot more complicated than just killing two Nens. Shikaku sighed. So avoidance it is. Until we can get better intel. Tsunade agreed readily. We need something we can use to track the targets, pictures, profiles, names, associates, teachers, students. Anything. We can't just declare war on Kumo to take out just two Nens when we don't have any means of locating or identifying them. None of them could argue with that. It was hard to plan an assassination mission when you didn't even know what the target looked like under the porcelain mask. Omada Hiroshi smirked as he downed his own sake. He could feel it in his bones. This alliance would last. The last Tsukikage had been a war-mongering barbarian. This young man was more calm, thoughtful, and practical. It helped that he held no personal grudge against Konoha and the Yondaime Hokage. He was more interested in rebuilding. Nobunaga Dakuin couldn't help smiling as he sipped his warm sake. He had only been Tsuchikage for 10 years and he had never expected to be negotiating a full-scale alliance and trade treaty given the general state of unrest with the recent Otto mess and the Akatsuki Biju situation. He certainly didn't expect to be signing one with Kumo after the disaster with Konoha. How did you do it, Hiroshi-san? Kumo hasn't made any good standing in recent Chunin exams. And now you produced two S-class elites. His voice held nothing but admiration. And your shinobis have grown so much stronger. Usually Doden jutsus easily counter Raiden or Fuuten jutsus, but what your nins use, it is different. Hiroshi poured more sake for himself and Dakuin. Good fortune mainly. I held true to my principles throughout my life. The Kamis choose to bless me by sending me two elites in my old age. Dakuin's eyes widened. Two Nuknins? He whispered incredulously. Hiroshi shook his head. Nope, one who was banished since he could not bear to remain in his birth village. His partner who has no record in any village. Dakuin sat straight. And you trust them? Two strangers? What if this was a high-level infiltration attempt? Hiroshi chortled. That is exactly it, my dear Dakuin. This one would never be sent for an infiltration. His partner maybe, but he is too open. Who is this gem? This prodigy? Hiroshi shook a bony finger. This one is no prodigy. He is a hard worker and has enough balls for 10 squadrons, but he is not a genius, not the way we classify genius. Hiroshi frowned slightly. He thinks outside the box. He smiled more slyly. His father did too. A growing suspicion bloomed. What is his name? Hiroshi batted his eyes. Aka Arashi. His partner is called Hanashin. The Raikage added unhelpfully. Dakuin growled. His real name Hiroshi-san. The foolish banter and tipsiness faded. The Yondaime Raikage spoke. Dakuin-san, I have chosen this man as my successor. My shinobis and people support him. But if you choose to end the alliance over him I will understand. His name, Namikaze Naruto. His father was Namikaze Minato. Dakuin sagged back as though struck. Deciding to drive the point in, Hiroshi continued. Minato sealed the Kyuubi no Yoko within his only son. The boy named Uzumaki Naruto. He was ignored, beaten and abused by Konoha, and still he wished to serve the leaf. He bled to kill 2 S-class nins when he was just a chunin. He nearly died to retrieve Uchiha Sasuke to save the Sharingan Kekkei Genkei for Konoha. And still they denied him the rank of Junin, his father's name, his heritage. The boy tried so very hard, but all humans have a limit, so he left. The one good thing the Godem Hokage did was banish him so the council could not mark him as a Nukenin. He left Fire Country and settled in Wave and Spring Country where he has contacts. The Tsukikage connected the dots. The merchant contracts. The Raikage smirked. Hi. Both countries owe nothing to Konoha. They have more affection for the boy because he fought for them, not just Ryu. Dakuin was torn. The boy's father slaughtered Iwa Nin, but it was during war. And he had clearly cut his allegiances with Konoha. But still, he is a Jinchuriki and badly treated. Dakuin pointed out neutrally. How can you be certain of his mental stability? Pish tosh. Minato was a seals master, and if the boy hadn't snapped after all those years in Konoha, I don't see why he will now. Besides, he is happy, content. He has a wife, a child, friends and comrades who trust and respect him. Things he had been looking for all his life. Things he never had. The Tsukikage nodded slowly. I can see that point of view. All our intel reports indicated the boy thirsted for respect and acknowledgement, things he never got in Konoha. Exactly. Dakuin smiled and shook his head. You are a lucky son of a bitch. Getting ready-made elites, a potential successor, all in one blow. Hiroshi nodded solemnly. I burn incense twice a week. The gods can be cruel, but occasionally they can be generous. Dakuin sighed. What about the new jutsus? They seem to be combos, but I don't see how you found and trained so many dual affinities. Hiroshi laughed and shook his head. It is not strictly dual affinities. Two shinobis with complementing affinities work together to amplify their attacks. Naijutsus. Naruto and Hibara pioneered this technique during their bounty hunting time. As part of the alliance, Kumo is willing to teach Iwa Nins the principles and some examples. Dakuin smiled at the irony. The son of the Yondaime Hokage becoming the Raikage and teaching Iwa Nins jutsus that could possibly destroy Konoha. I cannot say for certain, but I am almost sure the council will go for it. The boy did nothing to Iwa. His father and Konoha were the ones responsible. Besides, he is no longer Konoha but of Kumo, our new allies. Hiroshi raised his dish of sake and smiled. Hokage-sama, the case cage has sent a message to Konoha. Tsunade stared up at the almost mask-like visage of Sabaku no Tamari, Tsuna's ambassador to Konoha. The Kunoichi had taken the position in order to be close to Nara Shikamaru. The relationship had withered, but Tamari had stayed. Almost warily she accepted the scroll and bit her thumb to smear a bead of blood on the blood seal. Carefully she opened the document and read the contents. And paled. She stared up at Tamari. Do you know what the scroll contains? The mask fractured a bit. Hi. Tsuna is withdrawing from the alliance. We will only remain neutral with Konoha. Tsunade shook her head. She did not have to ask why. The Cage had a very close relationship with Naruto, his first friend. When he found out Naruto had left Konoha, had asked to be banished, the relationship had cooled. The only question was why now? Is there a particular reason why Suna is withdrawing from the alliance now? Other than the obvious. Temari hesitated, then decided there was no harm in answering. Konoha's spies would find out soon enough. Iwa and Kumo have formed an alliance. They have invited Suna. The information hit the Hokage hard. Gaara assures me the Raikage and Tsukikage have no plans to attack Konoha. This is more of a trade and mutual defense deal. She tilted her head to one side. This greatly benefits Suna. Part of the arrangement is exchanging shinobis and techniques. The Raikage's successor is the one who pushed for sharing. He says that forming ties, sharing strength, it will ensure the alliance lasts. Tsunade closed her eyes. She had fought with the council, argued for cross-training with Suna, going on joint missions, but the council had refused. Then she opened her eyes. The Raikage's successor sounds like a very wise shinobi. Have you met him? Do you know his name? Temari shook her head. I haven't met him. Only Gaara has, and he isn't telling. She frowned slightly. Gaara has never called him by name. Just Rokudame. Tsunade blinked away tears. Rokudame. It was a title she had hoped someone she loved as a little brother would receive. Now he never would. When are you leaving? In 2 days. Temari replied honestly. I've already packed most of my things. I've already made arrangements to have some big purchases to be delivered to Suna in a few weeks. I'm only staying to say goodbye to Shikamaru and the others. Tsunade nodded slowly. Very well. She smiled more openly. I will miss seeing you, Temari. I am certain Shikamaru and the others will as well. A few months later found the Godem Hokage nursing a never-ending headache as she sipped her tea waiting for the council to settle down. Every one of them were looking their age from all the recent stresses, and she hoped every one of those bastards would lose a lot more hair and get a dozen wrinkles. She waited. And waited. Silence. Expectant eyes. I have the report from the Junin team sent to protect the Fire Daimyo's diplomatic envoy to Kumo. The news is not good. Several councilors and clan heads took a sip of the herbal tea designed to heal ulcers. Tsunade took a sip of her own tea before continuing. The daimyo was not completely honest with us. The envoy he sent to Kumo were witnesses as he said, but he was not specific about what they were to witness. The tension built until one of the civilians burst out. What? A marriage? The alliance between Iwa and Kumo has been further solidified by the Tsukikage marrying the Raikage's grandniece, Ni Yugito. Shikaku frowned. Ni Yugito. Why does that name sound familiar? She is Jinchuriki to Nibi no Nekomata and a very respected and honored kunoichi in Kumo. It was rumored that she was a candidate to be the next Raikage, but clearly it is no longer the case. Tsunade answered bluntly. Is she reluctant? Inazuka Sume wanted to know. If so, this marriage may not last and the alliance might fall. Tsunade shook her head. I was hoping for that too, but no. She turned to the shadows. Of the entire Junin escort team, only Yuhi Kurenai was allowed to accompany the daimyo's envoy to Kumo where the marriage was held. The next day afternoon they were escorted back to the border where the rest of the Junin escorts were detained. Kurenai will be giving her first-hand report. One question at a time after she has finished her debriefing. Yuhi Kurenai stiffened her spine as she stood. Calmly she collected her thoughts before making her report. We were intercepted at the border by 2 squadrons of Kumo Junins and 1 of Iwa Junins and pinned down. They made it very clear that only 1 Konoha nin would be allowed entry into Kumo. I was chosen due to my eidetic memory. 1 group remained at the border while the smaller group escorted us into Kumo. They were very professional. No verbal threats or abuse. The pace set was comfortable for the daimyo's envoy. When the terrain was hard they carried the civilians. Kumo itself is isolated, difficult to penetrate, very defensive with the sheer cliff faces and gorges. But inside the walls Kumo has changed, there is energy and life. The civilians gossiping, traders bustling, children active. Most of the nins moved in groups of 2 or 4. We were taken to a high-class hotel that was full of foreigners. Some seemed to know what was happening but no one was talking. I saw the Tsukikage talking with the Cage and a masked man, but I thought nothing of it. He looked to be bold and I assumed he was their liaison or honorary guard. At dinner time I found out the Tsukikage would be marrying the Raikage's grandniece, Ni Yugito. There were too many shinobi guards to do a recon, so I stayed in my room. The next day I took a quick stroll and spotted the bride-to-be. She was talking with the same masked man in the cage. She called them both brother and hugged them. The wedding took place a few hours later. The masked man gave the bride away and the Reikage presided over the ceremony. The Kage and the Tsukikage's sister Sango were the official witnesses. From what I saw, the bride and groom have genuine respect and affection for each other. There will be an honest attempt to make this marriage work. All information about Nobunaga Dakuin indicates he has had no serious relationships or girlfriends in the past few years. His first wife died in childbirth, the daughter was stillborn. He has no children from any past liaisons. The witnesses from Iwa are pleased by the marriage and alliance. I did some eavesdropping during the reception. The masked man, he is aka Arashi. It is common knowledge in Kumo he the Reikage's right hand, a highly respected and skilled Junin and bold operative. And that he is a Jinchuriki, of what exactly no one who knows is talking. The Kage and Yugito trust him, call him brother. The next day we were escorted back to the border where the rest of the Junin escorts were waiting. Kurenai closed her eyes. 3 Jinchurikis, highly respected and honored, are very close to the seats of power in 3 different hidden villages. They are the key for this alliance. They will not be easily removed and the bonds they share will not be easily severed. Shuza frowned. I do not understand. How can Yugito so trusted and liked? Didn't the Godem Reikage die sealing the Nibi into her? Even Jieira was feared. Suna chose him for his power. Tsunade shook her head. I don't know. Neither does Kurenai. Does anyone know which Biju this aka Arashi holds? Jiraiya might, but he has not responded to any of my letters. She smiled sourly. Don't count on him telling Konoha anything even if he does. Several counselors flinched at that pointed rebuke. Hiyashi frowned. 3 Jinchurikis with power and influence, in positions of leadership in 3 separate countries that have bad relationships with Konoha. This is not a good thing. Iwa, Kumo and Suna. They might change their minds in the future and attack Konoha. Tsunade grimaced. A certain division in Anbu felt so and chose to act without this council's permission. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct pleasure of informing you that the highly illegal Nei division of Anbu is no more. Ever single Nei Anbu sent to interfere in the treaty negotiations is dead. In fact, Kumo sent several squadrons to track Nei back to their bases outside Konoha and wipe them out. 3 days ago Danzo was found dead. Officially he died of a heart attack. Unofficially the medics believe it is a new assassination jutsu that mimics a heart attack, a Raiden jutsu that overstimulates the heart. Several Anbuan Junins known to associate with him, and even some who don't have died in unanticipated encounters with Kumo nins in the weeks after. She smiled the now common death head grin. A most welcome gift from Kumo. I must send the Reikage a letter expressing my gratitude for getting rid of those thorns in my side. Honey eyes bored into certain individuals. Too bad they only took care of the shinobis. Several counselors flinched. They had been Danzo's allies and supporters. The shinobis on the council shook their heads. It was a highly illegal action, but it was very surprising how complete and ruthlessly thorough Kumo's reaction had been. Their intelligence operations must be very sophisticated to have penetrated and unearthed Nei. But then again Nei had been protected by factions on Konoha's council. Shikaku sighed and tapped the table to get everyone's attention. It is clear. If we stay out of Kumo's way they will not attack us, but if we interfere in their business they have no hesitation about wiping those responsible out. Tsunade nodded. Up until now our encounters with Kumo have only been in the field, when we are at cross purposes in the field on opposing sides, trying to gather intel. My recommendation is to not hide any more since hiding has not helped one bit. Several shinobis sat up straighter. What are you suggesting? Sume wanted to know. Tsunade glanced at a scroll in front of her. The Chunin exams are coming up. This time they will be hosted in Kumo. Usually we never send genin teams to Kumo or Iwa, but I'm thinking we should. It will give us a good opportunity to get a first-hand look at Kumo since the exams usually last at least a month. Shibi nodded thoughtfully. That is an excellent idea. We cannot send too many genin teams. But we should send those who have a greater chance of advancing so our Junins will have a reason to stay in Kumo. Tsunade nodded. Aburame Shino, Haruno Sakura and Hyuga Neji have genin teams that should be ready. My suggestion is to send an additional Junin for each team, one-on-one instructors for those who advance. A few more can join me when I travel to Kumo for the third exam. Hiyashi frowned. Is that a wise decision, Godem-sama? You are the Hokage? Tsunade snorted. And that is why I have to be there. The Yondaime Reikage has implied he will be announcing his successor during the third exam. I want to have a first-hand look at the new Rokudame, to see who we will be up against. Besides, with all the daimyos and dignitaries invited, it is unlikely anyone will try anything. Kumo will probably handle them just like they handled Nei. There was nothing anyone could say to that. Uchiha Sasuke frowned as he made his way through the cobbled streets of Kumo. The main avenues were broad and wide, but the side streets were ancient and winding. Kumo was much older than Konoha, and it showed. He didn't understand why he was one of the 3 additional Junins sent for the Kumo Chunin exams. Kakashi was here and he also had the Sharingan. Sasuke felt it was a waste of his time, especially since the Kumo shinobis were very circumspect about practicing in the public training grounds with all the foreigners and competition around. He sighed. All 3 Konoha teams had passed the first exam, a basic recon and intel gathering exercise. Each team was given a different target, a Kumo Chunin, to trail in a training room designed to mimic several blocks of a small town. They had to observe the target and retrieve specific papers the target either carried on them or secreted in a hidey hole that had to be located. The second exam was being held right now. Distantly, Sasuke wondered how many would pass. In his first Chunin exams, the proctor, Mitarashi Anko, literally cut the candidate pool in half by her choice of test. Each team had either a Heaven Scroll or an Earth Scroll. In order to pass, they had to secure the scroll they didn't have from the competition and reach the tower with all members. That meant only half the teams that entered could pass. Sasuke wondered if Kumo would have something similar. A flash of gold distracted him. Sharingan eyes followed a blonde head covered with spiky untamed tresses. A tall, broad-shouldered Kumo nin wearing gray camo pants, black combat boots, not shinobi sandals, a navy blue turtleneck, a green flak vest, hite tied around the right bicep. A girl barely in her teens wearing the Kumo hite tied around her arm was chasing him. Namikaze-sama, Namikaze-sama. The blonde Kumo nin stopped and settled into a crouch to look the genin in the eye. What is it, Katara? Shouldn't you be with your team and Junin senseis? Katara shook her head. Nyoko sensei and Ishin sensei gave us the day off. They have things to do for the Chunin exam. But I have a message for you. She held up a folded piece of paper. Namikaze took the paper and quickly scanned the contents. Quickly he produced a lead pencil from one of the flak vest pockets and scribbled a message on the same paper before handing it back to Katara. Katara, I need you to deliver this to the academy, too. I know. I always do this for you. Namikaze grinned and ruffled the girl's hair. That's just your luck having me as a neighbor. You get to be my unpaid courier. But I get to meet all sorts of cool people. Katara grinned up at the shinobi. I'll drop this at the academy before target practice. And then she darted off. In an unexpected display of chakra control and strength, she launched herself off the stones and towards a building. Her feet impacted with the brick for a brief second before she began running parallel to the ground, along the wall. The blonde shinobi watched her run before mimicking her actions, only much faster. Before Sasuke could react, he had vanished somewhere in the maze of tall buildings. Namikaze. The name sounded familiar, but for some reason the shinobi reminded Sasuke of Naruto. The way his hair shone gold but was forever a spiky mess. The way he treated the genin, trusting her to do what she said even without a Junin sensei around. These thoughts were foremost in his mind as he wandered back to the hostel where the party from Konoha had rooms. Konnichiwa, Sasuke-kun. Come on and join us. We are ordering lunch in our Neji-san's room since it has a private sitting room. Sasuke winced at the cheerful voice of his once genin teammate but reluctantly followed Sakura to the suite Neji shared with Shino. Sasuke had a double room he shared with Kakashi. Sakura was sharing with Kurenai. Sasuke blinked and looked more carefully. Tsunade, the Godem Hokage, was here along with her assistant Shizune, Nara Shikamaru, Yamanaka Inochi and Nara Shikaku. Godem-sama, you are here early. Tsunade eyed the last remaining Uchiha. Given there was no trace of Itachi, only this one could restore the Uchiha clan, but he showed little inclination to do so. Determined to thwart her opponents, she had shot down all attempts at pressuring him into marriage, or at least agreeing to have council selected surrogates bear Sharingan-wielding children. Yes, I received a report that concerned me. I felt it was best if I came early to prevent any unfortunate misunderstandings. Sasuke eyed the Godem. She looked like a cat toying with its prey. What sort of information? She smiled benignly. Information about an old friend. Deciding it was best to leave it be, Sasuke settled down to serve himself from the group meal ordered by Sakura. Distractedly he listened to the conversation. The second exam was to locate and retrieve a chakra-tagged scroll within 3 days. All members had to be healthy and mobile when they left the Badlands and reached the examiner's outpost. The catch being there were only 20 scrolls hidden in Kumo's Badlands and 50 teams participating. Even so, there was no guarantee all 20 scrolls would be found, so it was possible that fewer teams than 20 teams could advance to the next exam. Sakura's team had failed in the first day. One of her genins had fallen down a gorge and gotten cut up pretty badly, needing medical assistance. Currently the injured genin was in Kumo's hospital getting treated. The other 2 genins were resting. Everyone was hoping both of the remaining 2 teams would pass. Sasuke-kun, you look pretty distracted. Sasuke jerked and came to the present. He forced himself to relax. I was thinking. About what? Neji inquired coolly. Sasuke frowned. I met a Kumo shinobi in the streets. He looked like Naruto but he wasn't. A Kumo genin called him Namikaze. The older shinobis, Shikamaru and Sakura, stiffened. The Godem eyes sharpened. Are you certain, Sasuke? He was called Namikaze? Sasuke blinked and frowned. Positive. She called him Namikaze-sama. Tsunade began chuckling before laughing softly. He did it. He actually did it. Sakura stared at her old teacher. What do you mean, Godem-sama? Who is this Namikaze? I thought the Yondaime Hokage was an orphan with no relatives. Godem-sama. Inochi spoke warily. This is a confidential matter. They have no need to know about. Shut up, Inochi. Tsunade smirked, eyes aglow with predatory intent. Oh no, you are very wrong, Haruno. Namikaze Minato had relatives. He had a son he used as a sacrifice to save Konoha from the Kyuubi no Yoko, a child that he used as a Jinchuriki. A son that was scorned and betrayed by Konoha and those he trusted. Sakura recoiled. Everyone paled. Minato-sensei never married. He never had any children. Kakashi spoke slowly. You are incorrect. He married Uzumaki Kushina, a shinobi from Uzi no Kuni who joined Konoha's ranks as an Anbu. They kept their relationship quiet because Minato had many enemies. When the Kyuubi attacked Konoha, he used his only child and heir as a vessel to seal away the Kyuubi. His dying wish was for Konoha to see his son Naruto as a hero. But they didn't. Shikamaru could see it all. They saw him as a monster. As Kyuubi. And they treated him like Suna treated Jiraiya before the Oto-Suna invasion. Before he met Naruto and became Kazekage. Tsunade smiled, a slightly warmer expression. Correct, Shikamaru. I don't know what Sarutobi-sensei was smoking, but he fucked up big time. He failed to protect Naruto or honor Minato's last wishes. He allowed the son of our greatest hero to grow up hated and abandoned in an orphanage where he was subject to several assassination attempts by Konoha shinobis and civilians. The younger Junins paled, their imaginations readily filling the gaps, what was unsaid. I don't know how Naruto survived, how he grew up into such a decent young man, but he did. I guess the little kindness he got from Iruka, the ramen stand owners, a few Anbu, Sarutobi, it helped keep him sane. She stared at 3 faces in particular. But after being betrayed by the one he called brother, ignored by his own Junin sensei, used and discarded by his first crush. All these things add up, you know. After the 5th time the council denied his application to write the Junin exams, he decided to cut his losses. He told me he wanted to leave Konoha, so I let him. I banished him so Konoha's council cannot mark him as a Nukenin. I wasn't going to force him to stay in a village that hated him. She explained bluntly. If things continued, he would have snapped and gone Jiraiya on all of us or mimicked Itachi, and no one would be able to stop him. He is a Jinchuriki, you know, trained by the Sannin who taught the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto took down 2 S-class Nukenins from Akatsuki all by himself because the Anbu teams I sent to help him took their own sweet time getting there. She glared at Kakashi, who was very pale, his hands clenched and unclenched in an effort to still the tremors. Shino exhaled sharply. It explains so much. Tsunade smiled. Yes it does. Please, feel free to talk to your parents, your so-called elders about their actions. Only 2 clans in Konoha supported my requests about Naruto, the Abarames and the Inuzukas. They are the only 2 that have my full confidence. Shino bowed his head. My clan knows what it is like, to be disliked and feared for what we contain, to be seen as freaks. Shikamaru glared at his father. I don't see any logic in your actions and choices. In fact I think it is completely illogical and fucked up. If all of Konoha is like this, frankly I think I want to be banished as well. Neji inhaled deeply. As much as I dislike Naruto's choice of new village, I cannot help but agree with Shikamaru. He stared blankly ahead. I told him he could never understand the pain and burden of being cursed by a seal, by destiny or fate or some power he had no control over. How childish of me. What I've borne is but a fraction of what he's endured. Kurenai glanced at her clenched fist. She had not paid much attention to the Jinchuriki, considered him an irritant of no consequence. How wrong she was. Tears spilled as she realized just what Konoha had done. We've driven away the Yondaime's son. Yes you have. Tsunade agreed smugly. And now he has joined Kumo. If we are very lucky none of us will ever face him on the battlefield because that boy doesn't know how to give up. She glanced at Sasuke who paled and looked away. Sakura shook her head. We can't just leave it. He doesn't belong here. He belongs in Konoha. Her clenched fist shook. We should. She cried out as the Godem backhanded her once apprentice into the outer brick walls of the room, though not hard enough to make a hole through the wall. Sakura choked as Tsunade's strong hands gripped her throat and slammed the pink-haired Kunoichi against the wall. Listen to me you bitch. Naruto is off limits. I said this to the council and I say this to you and every Konoha shinobi in Kumo. If I find anyone authorizing missions to involving Naruto I will execute the one responsible. I do not care if it is a mission to assassinate him or to change his mind about Konoha. Any shinobi involved will not receive any medical treatment from Konoha medics, will be subject to 1 month in Anbu torture and interrogation, have his or her chakra vessels sealed for 2 months, and subject to 6 months of D-class unpaid missions. Repeat offenders will be killed outright or have their vessels sealed permanently, and right now you are tempting me to do just that. I have already enforced this law several times with the full support of the daimyo, so don't push me. The Hokage released the Kunoichi, allowing the younger female to collapse to the floor on her butt like a puppet whose strings had just been cut. Then she turned to glare at the wide-eyed audience. Stay away from Naruto. Do not approach him. Do not communicate with him. If he chooses to approach you it is a different story. All of you have already done enough to him. Now leave him be. The angry Godem stalked to the exit and literally tore the door off its hinges in her haste to get out. Shikamaru shook his head slowly. Shino, could you ask the clerk to send for a carpenter? The damages can be added to the bill. Then Sasuke spoke. We only have the Godem word that Namikaze is Naruto. Shikamaru heaved an exasperated sigh. If you wish to lie to yourself feel free. I for one am almost certain he is Naruto and that he has joined the ranks as a Kumo shinobi. He shook his head. The tactics used by the Kumo nins. It kind of explains things. What do you mean? Neji was interested. You've heard of Kumo's growing reputation, right? How their profile has been growing, and they've been receiving big merchant contracts. Everyone nodded. Naruto has friends everywhere. He's traveled all across the elemental countries with Jiraiya. Sasuke stilled. Tazuna named the bridge in Wave Country after him. The Great Naruto Bridge. And Princess Yuki in Snow Country. Those are the 2 big ones. Naruto probably has lots more contacts in different countries and towns like Jiraiya. If they trust and like him they trust and like Kumo. But what about Kumo's increased battle prowess? The new jutsus? Aka Arashi and Hinashin? Neji wanted to know. It could be a multi-pronged plan launched by the Yondaime Raikage. Naruto leads the trade and economic growth while aka Arashi and Hinashin direct and lead field operations and other unknowns revamp training and R&D. Shikamaru explained. But we cannot do anything about Naruto. Frankly, I'm not interested in having my chakra vessels sealed, so I suggest we concentrate on aka Arashi and Hinashin. Everyone reluctantly nodded, though several individuals had their own private plans. The Konoha contingent was very quiet as they watched the last remaining genins make their way out of the Badlands into the examiner's outpost, a barrack-style house where the Junin senseis and examiners waited. One of those examiners was a pregnant woman who was treated with great deference and respect. She was dressed in a thigh-long sky-blue maternity tunic over navy-blue hakamas. Both garments were embroidered with tiny crescent moons and spiral swirls in silver thread. Like quite a few Kumo nins, she wore black combat boots and carried a naginata slung in a quick-release harness across her back. Her weapon pouches and kits were slung the opposite way across her front and over her belly. She wore her hite wrapped around her left bicep. Despite her heavy gravid form, she moved with the grace and control of a trained fighter. It was surprising to see a kunoichi in current state still on active duty as an examiner. As she moved, she drew masculine eyes and interest. From the back there was no indication of her advanced condition, just her slim shapely form. When she turned in profile, her elegant features were what drew the eye. Narrow refined bones under porcelain pale skin, fine silky black hair twisted into an elegant knot secured by chopsticks and senbons, cool liquid black eyes set under delicate arching brows. Hibara-sama, the last genins have been sighted. Teams from Konoha and Iwa. Hibara inclined her head. Good. Make sure all the wounds are treated, and the scrolls verified. How many have passed so far? Her voice was low and throaty. 12 teams. 5 from Kumo, 1 from Konoha, 2 from Iwa, 1 from Kusa, 1 from Mizu, 2 from Suna. Hibara raised a faint brow. I am surprised and impressed. Chakra sensing and tracking tends to be higher-level specialized skills. There is knack to it, Hibara-sama. Once a few figured it out, the rest did as well. True. Once the cutoff has passed, call the genins and announce which teams will proceed to the next level. The next stage will take place in 2 weeks. With that, she walked out off the barracks overhang and towards a Kumo Junin who responded to her soft words. The pair walked off at a brisk but steady pace. Who is she? Neji wanted to know. The Kumo Junin examiner standing nearby glanced at the Hyuga and smirked. So Konoha was interested in Hibara-sama. Too bad for them. That is Hibara-sama. She is one of our best kunoichis. Neji glared the smarmy Kumo shinobi. She is pregnant. You are allowing her to risk her health and child in a potentially dangerous environment? Toshinako Iori laughed long and loud before he managed to speak between guffaws. No one, tells Hibara-sama what to do. She is a force of nature. Besides, everyone in Kumo knows better than to attack her. If an outsider is fool enough. Iori shrugged. She would be the least of the idiot's concerns. Neji frowned but did not press. It was clear Hibara was one of these new Kumo elites. Hopefully someone else would be able to find out more about her. Perhaps from a civilian. Sasuke sighed as he made his way through Kumo's marketplace. The quality of glass and crystal sculpture was quite exceptional. He had spent part of the morning watching some retired Kumo shinobis use chakra control, futon and kaiden jutsus to shape the delicate fragile materials into works of art. His senses spiked. Quick footwork took him out of the way, but he did not completely avoid the small form running into the back of his legs. The boy had tried to avoid him as well. Itai. The small form fell on his butt, practically rebounding from the impact. The small black head tilted back to meet Sasuke's eyes. Gomen Nasai Shinobi-san. Sasuke froze as he looked into Sharingan eyes. 1 tomo spun in the left eye, 2 tomos in the right eye. The boy looked to be around 5 or 6 years old. No Uchiha had ever activated the Sharingan at such a tender age. The boy stiffened seeing the Konoha hite and scrambled away on his butt. In a flash he turned and scrambled to his feet and away. Then Sasuke realized what was happening. Stop! He chased after the surprisingly agile child. The brat was taking full advantage of his intimate familiarity with the alleys and narrow side roads. Wait, I just want to know your name. The boy did not listen but continued to dodge and run. Ka-san, he cried, running straight to one of the workshops. Ka-san. Sasuke almost froze from the spike of killing intent. He just barely managed to avoid being stabbed by a kusarigama thrown by a very skilled, very fast nin. The weapon was retracted by a sharp jerk on the chain where it was caught by a kunoichi who moved between him and the boy. Sasuke froze as he took in her features. Uchiha delicate features, the almost triangular face, black eyes set under winged brows, silky black hair twisted into a knot secured by wooden chopsticks and steel senbons. He watched her shift to the balls of her feet, preparing to throw her weapon if he moved. Her face was cold, almost mask-like as she studied him like she would a snake, a rabid predator. Sasuke forced his eyes to the boy who was clinging to the pants of her navy blue hakamas. Then up. He nearly threw up when he absorbed what he hadn't seen from the start. She was pregnant, almost full-term given the way the material of her tunic caught around her rounded bulge. Quickly he retreated, holding his hands up. If she was Uchiha, if the boy was her son. Sasuke did not want to kill his own relatives over a misunderstanding. "My name is Uchiha Sasuke." She tilted her head to one side. "Yes, I know." Catching his surprised look, she smirked, a very familiar expression, an Uchiha smirk. "Do you think we would not have dossiers on foreigners in Kumo?" Sasuke focused on one nugget. You are a Kumo kunoichi." She merely stared at him. Sasuke felt his hands shake and clenched them to still the tremors. "Uchihas have always been Konoha shinobis." She snorted. "The bastard who sired me was an Uchiha. I am not. My husband is not. My son is not. We are Kumo citizens and nins." Sasuke stilled. He had never imagined this possibility. An Uchiha who had a casual liaison with some civilian outside Fire Country. A daughter who grew up without a father or clan, most likely looked down on and scorned until some Kumo nin realized she had a Kekai Genkei and sponsored her into the local academy and helped her get suitable instruction. Something stilled in him. No matter what, she was still an Uchiha. She, her son, her children, they had the Sharingan Kekai Genkei. "Your son will need training to master the Sharingan," he commented neutrally. She snorted and activated the Kekai Genkei herself. 3 tomos spun in each eye. "I will teach them, and their father most definitely will help. He is very good at developing techniques and training methods. We do not need you. We do not need Konoha." Sasuke recoiled at the absolute rejection. Dimly he was aware of several Kumo nins closing in on them. "Habara-sama, is this Konoha nin bothering you?" The captain of the patrol squad eyed said nin warily. The female Uchiha, Habara, snorted and turned away, placing one hand on her son's shoulder, gently guiding him away. "Not particularly, but Uchiha-san seems to be a little lost. Please make sure he returns to his hostel safely." Of course, Sasuke did not protest. If he started a fight, he and the Konoha group would more than likely be expelled from the Chunin exams. Besides, he had a name. The entire group was frozen, shocked by the time Sasuke finished his report. The Godem was more than a little concerned. An unsanctioned liaison was understandable, but a child that was never taken in, the visible proof that the Sharingan Kekai Genkei was clearly out of Konoha's control. The council would throw a fit. Neji stared intently at Sasuke. "You said her name is Habara?" "Hi." Neji glanced at Shino. Habara was the name of the kunoichi who gave orders to the second stage examiners. "She was also pregnant and matches your description, though she never activated the Sharingan around us." Neji explained. "The Kumo nins respect her skills, even pregnant. They said anyone who attacked her would regret their foolishness." Shino murmured. Shikamaru frowned as he considered the new information. "She is clearly one of these elites, the ones that Kumo has been deploying." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "It explains how so many of our shinobis were slaughtered. They were up against a Sharingan mistress who is more than likely a prodigy." Kurenai looked at everyone. "What are we going to do? We can't just let Kumo have the Sharingan Kekai Genkei." Tsunade laughed abrasively. "Let them? They already have it. The only way to stop them is to assassinate Habara and any children she might have." "No." Sasuke's clenched fists hit the low coffee table. "I won't let you." His own Sharingan activated and swirled into the Mangekyo. Tsunade met his eyes without any fear. "That is what Konoha's council will want. That is what they will push for unless I get some support for what I want." Sasuke inhaled sharply. His eyes subsided into the Tri-Kama Sharingan. "I will not let it. If I find out Konoha ordered the assassination of my only living relatives, I will defect." Kakashi coughed discreetly. "Why don't one of the kunoichis here talk with Habara-san? Perhaps she might be willing to consider migration if given some incentives." Sasuke snorted. "You didn't hear her, Kakashi. She hates Konoha. She'd rather spit on us than accept anything to do with us. Kakashi shrugged. Perhaps, but if we try we might get a better idea of what makes her tick. If we know just who or what she hates about Konoha we might be able to take steps. He trailed off knowingly. Everyone turned to Kurenai. The genjutsu mistress stiffened then slumped at the expectant gazes. Oh alright, I'll try talking with her. But I'll need some help tracking her. She looked around expectantly. Shino stirred. My Kikais have her scent. They will be able to track her. Kurenai nodded slowly. Okay, we'll start tomorrow after breakfast. The rest of you work on digging info on aka Arashi and Hinashin while training the genins. The third exam is coming up. It is one-on-one fighting and they'll need the practice. Kurenai frowned as she watched the pregnant woman negotiate with the craftsman. She was clearly commissioning a weapon of sort given the type of products he had on display on the walls and under the glass counters. With studied casualness she strode into the store and studied the kunai on display. They were a little different with tails of wire. Were they supposed to be used in conjunction with a Raiden jutsu? What can I do for you Yuhi-san? Kurenai carefully looked up into the neutral porcelain mask of the younger Kunoichi. Kurenai felt a pang of longing. She missed her own son, an academy student who was under the guardianship of Amino Uruka when she was away on missions. I was wondering if we could talk. Habara raised an arched brow. Talk? I have little time to spare. If you wish we can talk while I pick up my son. Grateful she hadn't been stonewalled, Kurenai followed the Kumo Kunoichi, Shino trailing some distance behind. Kurenai tried to piece together what they had managed to find out about Habara. Last name unknown, husband unknown, son unknown, very private and violent when personal information was revealed without her consent. She completely terrified or awed most of her comrades. Only her husband and a few elites could match her. Even heavily pregnant she could easily match the average Junin. She had a sadistic sense of humor and was relentless in the pursuit of her goals. Finally Kurenai decided to take the first step. Why are you so against Konoha? Because Konoha is full of arrogant bigots that put too much emphasis on bloodlines and not enough on ability. Habara answered quickly. Kurenai recoiled. That's not true. There are many nins who come from non-shinobi clans and have no kekai genkais. I studied hard to become a genjutsu expert. Habara glanced at the older Kunoichi with knowing eyes. Who are you trying to fool? Me or yourself? Konoha basically pigeonhole its shinobi from a very young age and never factor in growth unless it is truly exponential. You showed promise in genjutsu so you were groomed for that field. You were never encouraged to expand your kenjutsu or ninjutsu beyond the basics. Even what you do practice is heavily laced with a genjutsu component. She tossed her head back. Here in Kumo we feel differently. Kurenai considered the view an outsider would have. Specialization was necessary, but over-specialization could be lethal. Was that why Kumo was thrashing Konoha in most of the past clashes? Because Konoha nins weren't flexible enough to react to new situations? The genjutsu mistress bit her lip. Uzumaki Naruto was the master of unpredictable. If he were here he could change this Kunoichi's mind. Just like he changed Tsunade-sama's mind about being Hokage, or Yuki-sama about becoming a leader, or the dozens of other people he'd met since he became a genin. But he wasn't, he would never be, because no one had the spine to stand up to the villagers, to defy the council, to support the Hokage. And now they were suffering and it was entirely their own fault. But she had to try. For her village, carefully she decided to try a different tactic. Habara-san, I'm not sure if you are aware of the Uchiha massacre. One shinobi was responsible for killing almost every Uchiha in Konoha. He is presumed dead, but you should know S-class nins are very hard to kill. He's already killed all but his brother, if he finds out about you and your children. Kurenai trailed off, and was shocked by the amused expression on Habara's face. If you are talking about Uchiha Itachi I have no concerns regarding him. We have had encounters and we understand each other. He wished to destroy the Uchiha clan of Konoha, not the Sharingan Kekai Genkei. Habara explained mildly. Then her expression brightened. We are here. Kurenai followed the younger woman through a trade entrance to a crafter's shop. The narrow corridor wound past several furnaces and smithies and into the open air of an enclosed courtyard. In the middle of the courtyard was a massive stone block, a granite boulder created by a Doden jutsu. Some distance away was an older man, a craftsman from his leather apron. He was kneeling next to a small boy in olive green shorts, black boots and a cream t-shirt decorated by random navy blue spirals and crescent moons. The child was no more than 5, barely old enough to start in the academy, and he was testing the range of the fingerless fighting gloves made of spandex and reinforced by metal mesh. They were a custom job since very few children would require gloves that could take damage and channel chakra. Habara smiled warmly. Ryuichi, have you tried your new gloves? The sweet chubby face brightened. Hi Ka-san, I think I can do the new technique I was trying to develop with these gloves. Habara nodded encouragingly. Why don't you show me? Even if it doesn't work, it might give you some new insight. Perhaps Tu-san might have some ideas. Ryuichi nodded determinedly and closed his eyes. When they opened, they were bloody red, Sharingan active with 1 tomo in the left eye and 2 tomos in the right. Kurenai watched as the boy turned away to face the boulder. And then he concentrated, holding his hands at his sides, fingers slightly curled into claws. Chakra gathered around each hand, faintly purple energy more concentrated towards the back of each finger, then down towards each fingertip. Then the boy slashed, clawed at the air in front of him. 2 blades of purple energy formed and flew towards the boulder, slicing off big chunks where they impacted before dissipating. Kurenai gasped. Shino's eyes widened. The craftsman smiled proudly. Habara frowned, a faint crease marring her brow. The pregnant Kunoichi walked towards her son and placed one hand on his shoulder. Those chakra blades, they are not wind blades. It was a statement. The boy shook his head. It is my power shaped outside me. I got the idea after watching Yugito Ba-san practice using Nibi's claws. Habara chuckled. Do you think it is something others can do? Something you can teach? Ryuichi frowned. I don't know. He confessed. Takeo-san had to make many pairs of gloves for me before we found the design of wire and mesh that worked. It might be different for everyone depending on their affinities and chakra capacities. Habara nodded. But this is a good start. We will show your father your project. I hope you have been keeping good notes. She added sternly. The little boy looked offended. Ka-san, do you think I'm an amateur? I always keep notes. It is the first thing you and Tu-san taught me to do. Takeo chuckled. He is right, Habara-sama. He's kept a thorough record of all the past designs that didn't work, so he didn't duplicate any previous failures. I also have some ideas about different materials that might have more oomph for future production. Habara tousled the boy's messy hair and drew him close to her leg. It was difficult to crouch in her advanced condition, but she never restrained herself from displaying her affections. It was something he had taught her. Kurenai watched the little boy hug his mother's leg tightly before reaching up to pat her rounded belly and stand on tiptoe to press his ear against the lower curve. Habara looked at the Konoha nin's all affection and warmth drained. This is my child, my son, and I will protect him. I will never trust Konoha with his safety because you will let him be used and abused with no consideration for his health or happiness. You've let it happen to so many of your prodigies and geniuses. I will never trust such unworthy, weak-spined, two-faced cowards to protect my child. Tell that to your Hokage. And most especially tell that to your council. My family will never step foot in Konoha unless everyone who is over the age of 10 as of today is dead. Red bled into black as her Sharingan activated and trapped the 2 Konoha nins in a mild but difficult to dispel genjutsu. By the time Kurenai broke free from the illusion, mother and son had vanished. The only one in the courtyard was the craftsman Takeo, who was cleaning the rock fragments around the test boulder. He smirked seeing the Konoha nins return to the now. Habara-sama has left with Ryuichi-kun. I guess she's had enough of you too. My advice, forget whatever plans you have. She really hates Konoha. Kurenai and Shino had no choice but to return back to the hostel and make their report. She hates Konoha. I would strongly discourage any kidnapping scheme. She will come down like the wrath of the Shin'i Megami on the one responsible. The streets will run with blood if she feels cornered. Kurenai advised bluntly. She is an elite kunoichi and a mother, and an angry woman does not forgive or forget. The males shuddered and nodded. Shikamaru heaved a deep breath. Bad news kept coming and coming. When would it end? Shikamaru had a nasty feeling it wouldn't. Neji was slightly disturbed. This boy, he is a prodigy, a genius. From what we heard, yes. He was the one who developed the theory, designed the gloves, tested different patterns. I think the wires are designed to channel the chakra in a particular manner, like hand seals. Shino murmured softly. And this is his latest project. Kurenai sighed. He has done enough that his parents have taught him how to keep proper records, and to take his ideas seriously enough to finance the development costs. Takeo, the craftsman, was quite comfortable taking orders from a child. It's like he's done it before. Sasuke closed his eyes tightly. He is a genius, a jutsu developer. He uses the Sharingan to see how the chakra flows and make adjustments to have the effect he wants. Tsunade gulped her herbal tea, feeling very glad she had a supply of the special preparation. She was going to need the calming soporific qualities. And they still didn't know who the new Rokudame Raikage was. She caught Sasuke's eye. I don't know what we are going to do, Uchiha. If the boy is doing this on a whim with little formal training, imagine what he can do when he is older with the advice and training of masters. When the council finds out, and they will insist on kidnapping or killing Ryuchi. This is going to be a very costly and futile endeavor. His mother, and Kumo, will not take this lying down. Sasuke's expression was unexpectedly solemn. I know Godem-sama. I'm beginning to see. I only hope the new Raikage will be someone the council will think twice before attacking. If he takes Ryuchi under his personal protection, it will make any Konoha assassination missions a very expensive proposal. Tsunade nodded slowly and smiled a more honest, warmer smile. You are correct, Sasuke. Before leaving Kumo, I will speak to the Raikage and drop a few hints. Sasuke nodded and closed his eyes to stop the tears. His clan was not dead. The name might be lost, but the bloodline flourished. It remained strong and true. He only wished it was blooming in Konoha. Kurenai frowned as she watched the genins wait in the candidate section to be called. Unlike the Konoha third stage exam, the matchups had not been announced in advance. The genins had to be prepared for any opponent. Shino and Neji were down there with all the genins and the other Junin senseis. The Godem was in the special dignitary area with the other cages and daimyos. Kurenai looked at Shikamaru, who had just joined the Konoha group. Have you heard anything? Shikamaru shook his head. They're doing small talk. The Raikage is a cagey bastard. He is sitting tight on the information. Probably plans on making a big spectacle. They haven't even announced the matchups. Figured Shizune could keep track of things for the Hokage, so here I am. Have you heard anything? About the elites? Negative head shakes. No one is talking and the civilians do not know the details. It is standard Black Ops practice to keep identities hidden. Shush. Sakura hissed. The Raikage is speaking. Omada Hiroshi couldn't help the gleeful smile splitting his face. Who is this successor you are so pleased about? Moroshi Izako, the Mizukage, voiced the question on everyone's mind. The Yondaime Raikage smirked as he took a special note of Konoha's interest. Oh, I have every right to be happy with my choice of successor, Izako-san. He has a very high profile and skill level. In fact, some would say he outclasses the average cage. And I would have to agree. Everyone blinked at that claim. Just be a little patient and you'll see what I mean. Tsunade frowned as she caught the nuances, the smug certainty. This Rokudame was someone big, someone with impact. But who? Which of the new elites? The Raikage stiffened. The third exam is starting. In the pit below, a door opened to allow a slim blonde man to emerge from the rooms built under the stadium seating. His long legs and slim hips were outlined by the durable material of slightly baggy gray cargo pants that vanished into the standard black combat boots most Kumo elites preferred. He wore a short-sleeved blue t-shirt that outlined the sculpted torso and broad shoulders with the Kumo Hite around the left BIP. Tanned-toned arms covered with intricate seals in yellow, lilac, red, blue, and brown from bicep to the backs of his wrists. Somehow everyone suspected there would be more tattoos underneath his clothing. His head was covered with messy, uneven bangs that reached his shoulders, blonde tresses that spiked around his face framing the tanned, chiseled, undeniably masculine features. Long straight brows set above penetrating almond-shaped blue eyes. A narrow aquiline nose, a wide passionate mouth framed by a trio of faint white lines, a defined jawline and strongly corded throat. Namikaze-sama. The hushed whisper echoed and rebounded around the stadium, growing in intensity and volume. It's Namikaze-sama. Namikaze-sama. It's him. Oh, Kami-sama. It is Namikaze Naruto. I can't believe he is the third examiner. The Konoha nins froze and watched the blonde wave his hand and smile. They watched and heard the adoration, admiration and respect allocated to the once Konoha nen. He hasn't taken any genin teams or apprentices. My brother is in the academy and he's hoping to be his student. My cousin was on his second squadron few years ago. Tuga tells me he is Tushin in the field. Absolute destruction with god-like stamina and control. Understandable since he is a Jinchuriki like Yugito-sama. Don't be an idiot. He's like that before he uses the tails. When he draws on the Biju nothing can stop him. Has he ever lost control? Not against allies. He always recognizes his team. I saw him go 6 tails once. He was antsy like any other berserker but she calmed him down easily enough. Knowing laughter. How could she not? She is his match, his wife, his mate. He has no idea how much I respect him, for having the guts to bed and marry her. She is one cold bitch. The tone held nothing but respectful admiration. Not around him. A knowing leer. You haven't seen the two after they've finished a high-class mission. They don't bother waiting for a more secure base or with private rooms or tents. A rueful chuckle. Trust me, the two of them could stay up all night and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed the next day. Rueful envy and admiration. It is like having recharges them. Malice-tinged female laughter. Too bad most males don't have his endurance and stamina or technique. I hear you have trouble keeping it up for an hour ikatsu. A softer wistful feminine sigh. I met one of his old lovers in tea country. She said he was the best she ever had. That he could make her come with a casual touch. And she was a few years older and more experienced than him at the time. Really? Did she say anything else about him? That he completely spoiled her for other guys. How do you know she was being honest? I asked around. Most of the people in town were used to seeing Mariko-sama with 2 or even 3 lovers, but in the time Namikaze-senpai was with her she was monogamous. A few weeks after they parted company she went back to her old ways of keeping 2 or 3 guys around. A hesitant pause. You don't mean Mishimoto Mariko, do you? Of course I mean Mishimoto Mariko, you idiot. Why would I address any other Mariko as Sama? But she is one of Kumo's biggest clients. She controls several trade routes and owns several merchant convoys and warehouses in every single elemental country. A much younger male squeaked. And she is really good looking for a woman her age. An admiring voice. Her jugs are nearly as big as the Godem Hokage. A slap upside the head. Don't be a East fool Chiba. Mariko-sama did not get her current position and influence by simply being a pretty face. She had the drive, the ambition and the resolve to go against much more experienced merchant barons when her husband died and her stepson killed himself in that racing incident. A more thoughtful male voice. She probably taught Namikaze-sama all he knows about bargaining and negotiations. I'm surprised they're still friends. Mariko-sama said she knew whatever they had was only temporary. He made it clear from the start that he had other goals than being a merchant baron and would eventually be moving on. Did she say anything else about him? Just that whichever woman snagged him would be one lucky bitch. A chorus of feminine sighs. Too bad he's completely devoted to her. I don't understand how they got together in the first place, she's so cold. Have you ever seen the two of them together? It is like fire and ice. Naruto smiled as he absorbed the positive energy, the respect and adoration of Kumo, things he had once yearned for from Konoha. Carefully he kept his gaze from the Konoha contingent. He recognized them but they were his past and of no concern for his future. A quick customized jutsu to amplify his voice and he spoke. Welcome. Welcome to the 3rd stage of Kumo's Chunin exams. I hope all our candidates are rested and ready, but before we proceed to the one-on-one matchups there will be another culling. His warm soothing voice became firm. Of all the genin teams that passed, only 2 from each team will be allowed to proceed. There was an immediate uproar of protest but Naruto was quick to counter it. You might protest this, why allow us to reach this point only to deny us? I will give you the answer. Life is not fair. You will accept missions where you must make a decision. If you are the captain you will have to choose which of your subordinates to sacrifice so the rest of the team can survive or complete the mission. If you are a Chunin you might face the most difficult decision of your shinobi career. How willing are you to sacrifice yourself for your village? Are you willing to die? Risk capture or disgrace? Are you willing to pay the price so your team, and your village benefits? These are difficult questions, things you must consider, things you will face. Today you are here to display your village's strength before allies, enemies, and potential clients. Future income depends on how impressive a show you make. If you are not certain of your skills, if you know you are the weakest in your team, are you willing to make the sacrifice? To step back and allow your teammates to shine? To get the attention? This is not a life or death match. There will be other Chunin exams. So choose. One genin from each team must give up. If the decision is not made in 5 minutes, the whole team is disqualified. Each cage stared at the young man, the third stage examiner, with new interest. He makes a very good point. Forcing the candidates to face and admit their fears and weaknesses. To pay the price required to climb the ranks. The Mizukage murmured. The Tsukikage stared at the blonde with eyes full of admiration. And the way it was announced. The candidates are completely unprepared. The pressure placed on them will be enormous. They will be admitting their weaknesses before all. And the argument being counterbalanced by the need for personal sacrifice. I know many Junins who have yet to learn that lesson. The Cage smirked. Naruto is like that, full of surprises and unexpected depths. The Kusakage frowned, then glanced at the Hokage and the Tsukikage. Namikaze, any relation? He trailed off delicately, looking pointedly at the Reikage, who smiled. His father could have knocked me over with a feather when the boy walked up to me and said he wanted to sign up. The Reikage carefully looked at the Hokage and Fire Country's daimyos. Both were smiling bittersweet smiles. The Hokage stirred, awareness sharpening. Naruto was always like that. Good at surprising people. She latched onto a certain bit of information. He is married? The Reikage nodded. Yes. His wife is a Kumo Kunoichi. The Hokage nodded, slowly taking in the information. Is it possible to meet him? The Reikage smirked. Oh yes. Most definitely. But he will not be available until after the third stage is finished. He is the examiner. Sakura clenched her fist, nearly splintering the wooden rail. What does that baka think he is doing? She snarled. He is testing them. Shikamaru countered mildly as he tapped the ashes off his cigarette. Sacrifices are necessary at times. Isn't it best the candidates find out if they are capable of handling the short end of the stick ahead of time? But you don't abandon your team. Sakura cried out. The Junins snorted and looked away from the pink-haired medic Nen. All of them were used to taking the more risky missions where sacrifices were sometimes needed. Sometimes it was just a teammate's general well-being, because he got wounded playing bait. But sometimes it was permanent, to delay pursuers. Sasuke stared down at the pit. What have you been doing all this time, Dobi? What have you done to get so much admiration and prestige? Naruto waited and watched as the genins separated into quick huddle sessions. They did not let the shock slow them down too much. Now would they be willing to accept the bitterness? To draw the short stick? They were. One by one, only 2 candidates stepped forward from each team. In most cases it was 2 shinobis, sometimes a kunoichi and a shinobi. Naruto smiled gently and glanced at the side where the assistants were feeding the data into the system that would generate the electronic matchup. He studied each candidate quickly. They were nervous, wondering if they made the right call, but willing to accept the burden. That was a good sign. Congratulations to those who decided to step back and to those who have stepped forward. You have made a difficult call. It is simply one of many you will have to as you grow older and advance in each of your respective villages. Now each match-up was generated electronically 5 minutes before the duel, so all candidates have to be present at all time. There will be 1 round completed today. 2 if we have time. The remaining matches will be fought tomorrow. If you feel you cannot proceed due to injury, you can concede. The rules are simple. Anything goes. Winner will be decided by knockout, concession, or when I say so. The matchups were generated. The genins called down. The duels fought. For the most part it was a standard genin battle with the occasional flashy jutsu or kekai genkai being used. Naruto was a ruthlessly fair referee, quick to interfere before any permanent injuries resulted. As the morning and afternoon progressed, the genins were whittled down into the survivors who would proceed to the semis and finals. Names displayed on the flashing diode board. Nobuden Sakama of Iwa, Hayate Mitsuko of Konoha, Momochi Wakashi of Mizu, Shumaru of Suna, Odama Kiyoshi of Kumo, Rishinta Zaraki of Kumo, Masame Reiko of Kumo. Naruto nodded, satisfied by the names that remained. Tomorrow the semifinals and finals will take place. Candidates who need healing, please proceed to the infirmary. If you have your own medic nin, please use their services. And then he vanished in a swirl of air and a column of blue-red sparks. Sasuke glared down at the stadium that was heavily damaged by the matches. Kumo had chosen not to do any repairs other than reinforcing structural damage. The candidates had been forced to use the rubble as part of their tactics, like they would have to in real life. Where did he go? It is of no concern to us. Aburame Shino spoke quietly. Only one of his students reached the semifinals and would be fighting the next day. Besides, we will be seeing him tomorrow. Besides, Mitsuko will be fighting and I want to go over some strategy sessions with her for tomorrow's fights. The next day the visitors and shinobis and candidates and potential clients assembled in the stadium for the last day of the third stage. While they waited for the examiner, Namikaze Naruto, to make an appearance, the Raikage surreptitiously patted the parcel wrapped in brown paper and secured by string that lay on his lap. I will be naming my successor before the matches begin. This is a little gift I've been meaning to give him. I think presenting it to him while announcing his new promotion would make it a memorable reminder. The stadium and the dignitaries waited and watched. At the stroke of 10 the examiner, Namikaze Naruto, arrived in a swirl of sparks. The Raikage nodded to the bold operative who rang the gong for silence. Everyone in the stadium turned to the box where the cages and daimyos sat. The Raikage waited until he was certain he had their attention before speaking. As most of us know, I am an old man. I took up this position when my successor died. I kept at it because I couldn't find someone I could see as the Rokudame Raikage. That is until now. He has been tested and ratified by his peers and Kumo's council. His candidacy was accepted without hesitation by Lightning Country's daimyo. He is a relative newcomer to Kumo, but what he has accomplished is near miraculous. After several years as a bold operative, he is ready to leave field duty behind and accept this new responsibility, to be Raikage. Kumo, I will be stepping down by the end of this week, so I present to you your new Rokudame Raikage. Namikaze Naruto. The stadium erupted into spontaneous cheers and whoops and screams of encouragement and support. Out of the roar emerged the chant, "Na Mik's, Na Mik's, Na Mik's, Na Mik's, Na Mik's." Every single cage but 3 watched near shell-shocked as the new Rokudame Raikage, the third stage examiner, bowed and waved his hands, accepted the support and tribute. Hiroshi waited for a slight lull before speaking. Most of you know Naruto as a Junin comrade, a diplomat with many allies outside our borders, a skilled contract negotiator, a teacher to many aspiring young nens, a counselor to quite a few of our academy students and genins. Now that he has left Bolt, I have no concerns with revealing his other aspects. With those enigmatic words, he tossed the brown paper-wrapped package in an arc across the stadium. The blonde leapt in the air to catch the package. A no-seals wind blade cut the strings, allowing the package to be unwrapped. He pulled out a handful of cream-colored material, dropping the paper and string to the floor. A garment of some kind. And then he laughed long and hard, a joyful sound. He grabbed the material in both hands and swung it to put it on, a coat of some kind. A knee-length sleeveless garment designed to be worn open with no buttons to close it. A strong breeze filled the stadium, causing the materials of the long skirts to billow and ruffle his hair. His very appearance struck a chord in the hearts of those who remembered, those who had met the Yondaime Hokage. It was like seeing Namikaze Minato all over again, like he never died more than 25 years ago. In kanji on the left front panel were the symbols for Rokudame and Raikage embroidered in deep purple. On the right front panel were other symbols. A blue crescent moon wrapped around an orange swirl that resembled a whirlpool. Below in black was the silhouette of a 9-tailed fox. And then he turned so everyone in the audience could see the bigger design on his back. Embroidered in crimson silk thread were the symbols for storm. Shikamaru gaped, his cigarette falling from his open mouth. Aka Arashi. Sasuke stared through Sharingan eyes. Envy, jealousy, regret burned his soul. Sakura shook her head. It can't be. It must be some kind of trick. It isn't, Shino countered. His eyes did not move from the spectacle. Inochi turned puce as the full implications of everything hit him. Shikaku popped 2 antacids and took a deep swig from a hip flask before handing it to his old teammate, who downed half of the remainder. A lone tear trailed from Kakashi's uncovered eye. He looks like Minato, doesn't he? Everyone turned to stare at the smirking Gama Sanin, who had somehow snuck up on the Konoha group. What? Did you think I'd miss seeing my second apprentice become a Kage? He smirked even wider and sipped sake from his own hip flask. The Sannin smiled slowly as he settled his eyes on his student, his greatest achievement other than Icha Paradise. The brat was damn troublesome, just like his father, but most definitely worth it. He will make an excellent raikage since his birth village is filled with bigots, cowards, fools, and incompetents. I'm definitely thinking of settling here on a more permanent basis. Kumo is a bit cold, but the women here are more receptive to a little flirting and wordplay. His eyes glazed. Those Chunin twins made me pass out with just words and a little skin. Unfortunately, they also stole my wallet to teach me a lesson. It inspired me to shift my perspective for my next book. A she-thief who specializes in one-of-a-kind collectibles. He smirked at the males. The first release will be in Kumo, followed by Iwa and Suna. Then he walked away to join a group of pretty Kumo civilian women. Naruto smiled as the cheers died down, but the positive energy remained. He could feel the thrill, the barely restrained eagerness. And it charged him. A fierce smile split his face before he began speaking. Thank you, Kumo, for welcoming me, for accepting me, for supporting me. Hiroshi Jii-san, you remind me of another Kage, one who has been dead for a long time now, but for the longest time he was the closest thing I had to family. For years I fought to make him proud, to live by the principles he held so high. It did not work because the people around me did not feel the same way. But here in Kumo, here I can see the will of fire. And it inspires me. The crowd swelled and cheered in response, in affirmative. Naruto looked at the awestruck Kumo genins, the three who had made the cut to reach the semis of the third stage. In each of you three and all other Kumo nins I see a little bit of myself. The determination and drive to excel and be the best you can be. I have never been a Junin sensei and I doubt if I ever will with the duties of being raikage, but it does not stop me from teaching and learning. In the years to come, do not rest on your laurels. Intrigue me, inspire me, awe me. If I can see the spark within, I will help you. If you specialize in something I don't, I will find those that can teach you. If Kumo has no specialists, I will look for them among our new allies, Suna and Iwa. If it is truly esoteric and long-forgotten, Kumo will support your quest of self-improvement. If you can make a good case, R&D or Bolt will finance your research and travels. I will not let your desire for more to go unfulfilled. Those who want to learn will have avenues that are usually only available to the wealthy or shinobi clans. Hiroshi smiled proudly, puffing on his pipe. Tsunade smiled a bittersweet smile. Naruto wanted to be Hokage so badly. He was the one who convinced me to accept the job, as a fill-in. I truly hoped that one day he would be Rokudame. I never considered the possibility he would be the Rokudame raikage. She chuckled softly. Hiroshi shrugged. Life is like that. Konoha's loss is Kumo's gain. His eyes were steely. We have no plans to invade Konoha, but we will retaliate if attacked. Put a leash on your council, Tsunade. If they go behind your back, we will not be responsible for the inevitable deaths. Naruto is very much his father's son. He will not hesitate to protect his village, which is Kumo. Tsunade nodded slowly. I see your point. I will remind the council the foolishness in attacking a major village allied with two other major villages. Jiara snorted softly. Get your evacuation plans up to date, Tsunade-san. I can say with almost certainty that some idiot in Konoha will go half-cocked and spark a conflict. Tsunade bit her lip and did not say anything. She had the feeling that Kage was right. She turned her attention to Naruto, who was still speaking. She could see the charisma he had, the qualities of his father. Minato could make his team follow him into hell. Naruto must have that same knack to have won the love of an entire village and charmed Iwa into signing a treaty negotiated by the son of the man responsible for them losing the Konoha-Iwa war. Naruto smiled softly, seeing the slightly frightened looks of the non-Kumo candidates. He looked up. The sky was cloudy, thunderheads building, traditional Kumo weather. He smiled more encouragingly at them. Tell you what, since you most likely aren't very good at fighting in this kind of weather, I'll give you a handicap. He grinned at the down faces of the Kumo genins who had clear plans to use the weather. You cannot always expect cloudy weather conditions that best suit your fighting style, so suck it up, Kiyoshi, Zaraki, Reiko. This is the mantra of Bolt. Adapt, improvise, overcome. Momochi Wakashi frowned and stared at the examiner, the new raikage. I don't see what you can do about the weather, Namikaze-sama. No one has enough chakra to move so much air and change weather systems. The examiner just lifted an admonishing finger. But you are mistaken, Momochi-san. You are assuming I will be moving the clouds. I won't. He tilted his head back to stare at the sky, his hands loose at his sides. Then he raised them above his head in a faintly cup-like formation. The yellow, purple, and red tattoos on his arm began to flare and glow and burn almost white. Chakra formed a haze around his frame, concentrated in his hands. And then he spoke the name. Namikaze Hijutsu. Raikaze no Suzaku. The blast of raw power left his hand and gained the form of a huge phoenix with wings that trailed fire and lightning. The moment the apparition hit the clouds, it dispelled in a flare of chakra, lightning, fire and wind that ripped through the clouds, literally vaporizing them. A fine drizzle hit the stadium. The sun shone brightly, creating a rainbow that arched over Kumo. The entire stadium watched this display of casual control and power, dumbstruck. Then the examiner smirked at Momochi Wakashi, whose jaw was gaping. Satisfied? The clouds will not reform for at least a few hours. Long enough for the duels to be fought and won. Besides being from Mizu, you will have an advantage with all the moisture in the air and ground. Wakashi nodded, dumbstruck. The examiner grinned, satisfied with the commotion he had caused. Good. Now I expect a relative of Momochi Zabuza to make a good show. He was one of the first shinobis I fought in battle and one of the few role models I had as a genin. He and his student taught me that being a shinobi requires great sacrifices. He glanced at the spinning display of the electronic matchup. It slowed, then settled to display two names. All right, folks. First match, Shumaru of Suna versus Rishinta Zachary. Kurenai's hands were trembling. She could still feel the aftermath, the chakra burn created by such a large-scale technique. She always had a very good chakra sense, and years studying genjutsu had only refined it. Forcing down the reflexive terror, she looked to her companions. Sasuke? Kakashi? Did you see anything? Sasuke shook his head and deactivated the Sharingan. It was a no-hand seals technique like Rasengan. His chakra seemed oddly concentrated around those tattoos on his arms. It is probably part of the jutsu. Shikaku surmised. I've known Anbu who get a Fuin Jutsu master to seal the skeleton of a favored jutsu, so they don't have to do the complete chain of hand seals and lose time. But I've never seen that technique used for something that is clearly an A or S class ninjutsu. Sakura frowned and looked at Kakashi. You can store a jutsu using Fuin Jutsu? That is one of the pinnacles, Fuin Jutsu, Sakura. But is a very dangerous and intricate field of study. Many shinobis have died trying to complete their seal mastery. I only know pieces I picked up from my Junin sensei. Jiraiya is probably Konoha's only living expert. And it is very doubtful he would be willing to study and duplicate such techniques for us. Sasuke nodded sharply. He had first-hand knowledge of just how dangerous Fuin Jutsu could be. His psyche had been twisted and shaped by Orochimaru via the curse seal. Shikamaru shook his head slowly. Naruto was always good at making up his own jutsus, even the really weird perverted ones. That jutsu is probably only one of many more destructive ones he has. Jutsus he used in the field as aka Arashi. A cold chill ran down all their spines as each of them remembered just how many deaths had been attributed to aka Arashi. But if Naruto was the storm, who was the flower? Tsunade watched with fond pride as Naruto kept a firm hand on hot tempers, interfering before any more permanent damage was inflicted. He was an impartial judge, not favoring one genin over the other. At the end of each duel he gave a brief critique highlighting strengths and weaknesses for the genins, things they would have to work on, even those from villages outside the Iwak-Kumo-Suna alliance. Shumaru of Suna versus Rishinta Zaraki of Kumo. Winner Shumaru. Momochi Wakashi of Mizu versus Odama Kiyoshi of Kumo. Winner Kiyoshi. Then her blood ran cold at the next matchup. Hayate Mitsuko of Konoha versus Nobuden Sakama of Iwa. The Konoha Kunoichi was outclassed by the Iwa genin given his previous displays of skill and strength. His Kekai Genkai increased his skin density, making it nearly impossible to injure him by an edged weapon, which was her specialty. She glanced at Dakuin looking for some reassurance and her heart sank. The Tsukikage was frowning and leaning forward slightly. What is it? The Hokage wanted to know. Dakuin looked at the Godem levelly. Sakama's entire clan was nearly wiped out by a Konoha assassin who managed to poison the water and food supply. More of them died on the front lines against the Yondaime thanks to the idiocy of my predecessor. It has been very difficult for him to adjust. It doesn't help with his still living relatives shaping his opinion and views about vengeance and Konoha. He is one of our best. Rookie of his graduating year. He chose not to advance in the last 2 exams in order to focus on his private training regime. He'd participate so his teammates could have the chance to advance and then forfeit. Tsunade turned her attention to the pit and prayed she wouldn't have to fight for the life of a Konoha genin in surgery. Enough. Sakama struggled to break free from the iron grip around his wrist and failed. He turned and glared at the one preventing him from killing his target. Almond blue eyes were calm, almost understanding, but the grip remained firm. Konoha destroyed my clan, he hissed, and they destroyed my childhood. The blonde agreed in even tones. They beat and hurt me with words and weapons. I was thrown out of the orphanage for the sin of being a living reminder. Konoha has done terrible things against your village and perhaps your loved ones, but doesn't give you the right to lose control. You are not the only one to survive terrible loss, and Kami knows you won't be the last. As long as there are humans, there will be wars and death and survivors. Blue eyes were glacial, laced with the subtle killing intent of an experienced nin. Sakama couldn't help but stare and listen to this Junin. Know this Kage, the son of the man who nearly decimated Iwa. They are hypocritical trash, but that doesn't mean you should lower yourself to their level and kill all those you fear and hate. You want to rub their faces and their incompetence in their faces. You want to show them just how weak they are. You want them to live in fear, terrified of shadows and the dark. You want them to know you held their lives in your hand, but it wasn't worth the effort, not when you aren't getting paid to kill. Sakama relaxed minutely, almost hypnotized by the flowing cadence and logic. Don't you hate them? For what they did to you? How did you bear it? He wanted to know. He wanted to know just how this shinobi did it. The blonde smiled gently and released his hold. I had few people I cared for, those who cared for me. They gave me purpose as a child. When I grew older, I found I needed more. Things they could not give me, things others refused to give me, so I left. His eyes became more solemn. Remember, every nin you kill also has family. People who love him or her, a spouse, a parent, a child. When you kill them, you hurt others just like your own clan was hurt. Kill, but do it because you need to, not for petty vengeance. Remember, you are a shinobi, not a murderer. We kill only in the line of duty, in defense of our village and kin, not out of some petty destructive emotion like vengeance or hatred that will consume you. You are better than that. Sakama nodded slowly and blinked back tears as the large hand gripped his shoulder in a display of affection. Shosha Nobuden Sakama. The large hand patted his back. Get going. Your team and sensei is waiting for you. An encouraging shove sent the Iwa genin on his way towards his team and sensei with a fresh new perspective and new idol. Hayate Mitsuko cringed, waiting for the final blow. Her ears were ringing. She was certain she had fractures in her forearms from blocking the impact of the Iwa genin's blows. But it never came. She could no longer see the red spots through her eyelids. The sun was blocked. Gingerly she opened her eyes and peered up. A tall blonde Kami was standing over her. The light created a halo around the spiky mess of golden hair. The cream coat flapped around his braced legs as he stretched out a hand to her. She blinked slowly. He was beautiful. Blue eyes slanted under straight brows, the narrow straight nose, absolutely masculine features, the intriguing faint white lines around his mouth. He reminded her of someone. Am I dead? She asked faintly. He looked amused. Why do you ask? Because I must be in heaven. You look like the Yondaime Hokage. He blinked. I think you might have a concussion, Hayate-san. Let's get you to the medics. Carefully he helped her to her feet when she stumbled. Her ankle had twisted in the unbalanced fall. He made a TS King sound and carefully slipped one arm behind her shoulders and another behind her knees to carry her bridal style, ignoring her protests. Hush now, Hayate-san. Once the medics agree, you can walk on your own 2 feet. Mitsuko frowned and protested. I still think I'm in heaven. You look just like the carving of the Yondaime on the Hokage monument. He chuckled, a low rich sound. That is because he is a relative. Mitsuko blinked. If he is a relative, then what are you doing in Kumo? You should be in Konoha. He was quiet though he continued to walk. Why don't you ask your sensei that question, Hayate-san? If he cannot answer, feel free to talk to your parents, any Junin, even the clan heads and the counselors in Konoha. Mitsuko frowned but nodded. A few seconds later they were at the edge of the dueling grounds where Shino-sensei was waiting. Mitsuko did not protest as her sensei took her from the not Yondaime. He had often carried her home after a hard training session. Vaguely she heard the not Yondaime talk to Shino-sensei. Naruto nodded at Shino. He wasn't sure what to say to the Aburame. His clan was one of the few who supported his Junin application, though they had little influence to push it through. Shino nodded in response. Naruto. How is she? A mild concussion. She isn't quite certain of her surroundings. She should sleep it off just fine. Shino frowned faintly before speaking. You left Konoha. Naruto raised a faint ironic brow. If you were in my shoes, would you have stayed? True. I would have smuggled into a merchant caravan to get out of Konoha as soon as I was old enough. Shino admitted. Naruto snorted. Oh, I tried that often enough, but the Anbu always found me. Both nins stared at Mitsuko, who stirred in her sensei's arms and blinked slowly. Shino-sensei? Yes, Mitsuko? Why is Yondaime-sama's relative not in Konoha? Shino stiffened and looked at Naruto, who explained. I think she is a little out of it. She thought she was in heaven and I was the Yondaime. But you look so much like him. Mitsuko protested. Just like the pictures. Naruto grinned, a feral expectant expression. I told her to ask you, and her parents and any shinobi including the clan elders. With that little bombshell he turned on one foot and strode off, creamcoat flapping, the kanji for storm almost afire on his broad back. Shino, what did he say? Shino turned to look at Kurenai. Sakura was already standing in front of him, quickly running a diagnostic and healing Mitsuko. He didn't say anything, Shino said finally. Just that Mitsuko probably has a concussion. He struggled briefly. Mitsuko thought he was the Yondaime. She said he looked so much like the Yondaime and wanted to know why he wasn't living in Konoha. Naruto told her to ask me, and everyone else in Konoha. The Junins looked at the genin, who was out of it, having been sedated by Sakura. She is going to want to know. Kurenai surmised grimly. The more we refuse to answer, the more she will want to know. If we lie, the Godem will find out and she will blow up. Neji shook his head. There has been enough lies. Too many, in fact. It is time the council and everyone responsible admit their sins and make reparations. Shikamaru sighed. Why don't we just table this for now? There are still 2 more matches to watch. Naruto grinned. He was practically bouncing on his feet. The 3rd stage was done. Officially the winner was Kiyoshi, but there had been very little leeway. It could have just as easily gone to Sakama. He had already prepared and handed in his recommendations regarding all the candidates. All he had left was to do the polite small talk and a quick circuit, then he was free. At least until the end of the week and his official inauguration. He had time to spare since he had largely handed over his old responsibilities and Hiroshi insisted on handling the ceremonial details. Naruto. There are people who want to meet you. Naruto stomped on Chibi Naruto, who wanted to throw a tantrum, and dutifully made his way over to Hiroshi. He would have to do this a lot more in the future, and it was best he got used to it. Hiroshi was surrounded by the visiting cages and daimyos. Carefully Naruto did the usual greetings and polite small talk, moving around the circle until he came to a particular trio of familiar faces. A more natural open smile broke out. Hello, Ba-chan, and quickly dodged Tsunade's fists. What did you call me? Tsunade couldn't help the relief that flooded her system at the familiar nickname. Naruto grinned. Ba-chan, because that's what you are. He teased, dodging her wild swings until she finally gave up and stopped, but Naruto kept a careful distance before turning his attention to the other 2. Shizune Ne-chan. A quick brief hug to the lightly blushing medic Nin. Ero-sensei. A more taunting greeting for Jiraiya. You are never going to stop calling me that, are you? It was more of a statement from the exasperated Gama-sanin. Naruto considered the words and smiled cheerfully. Nope, you'll always be Ero-sensei. Or Ero-senin. Or, just stop it, Gaki, when you stop your research. Naruto countered. Which will be never, since you have no self-control. He grinned at all the cages. If you aren't very familiar, Jiraiya writes a particular series of popular literature. If any of you are Icha fans, get him to autograph your copies. The male cages and nobility looked at the Sanin, who was grumbling. Each and every one of them were closet fans of Icha Icha Paradise. Each made private resolutions to get their volumes autographed by the author before leaving Kumo. Jiraiya was torn between laughter and horror at the brat. You know I was planning on giving you a pre-release copy of my newest book. Naruto shrugged. If you don't, I'll buy it like everyone else. Tsunade was horrified. Naruto. Naruto refused to flinch. Ba-chan, 95% of all heterosexual males read Ero Sennin's books even if they don't admit it. Hell, I blackmailed Sandame Jii often enough when I was little by using his copies as hostage material. Everyone choked at that tidbit of information. The revered shinobi known as the Professor, the longest reigning Hokage, read smut and had been blackmailed by a child who probably threatened to destroy it. Tsunade heaved an exasperated sigh. Naruto was destroying Sarutobi Sensei's mystique, his reputation. But then again, he was a dirty old man and a pervert just like most other males. Then something struck her. Naruto, when did you start reading Jiraiya's books? Naruto pursed his lips trying to recall the details. He managed to corrupt me during my second training trip. When things were slow, I'd critique and edit his material for him. I stopped shortly before I left Konoha. After I was too busy. All the males blinked at that bit of information. That explained why there had been quite a few new Icha Icha books in a 3-year period about 10-12 years back. After that, Icha Icha books were published between longer intervals. But I thought you hated perverts. Tsunade was aghast. Her beloved little brother had been corrupted by her old teammate. Naruto smiled softly at the closest thing he had to a grandmother. Ba-chan, all guys are perverts. I think it is something genetic to make sure the human race doesn't go extinct. I am more honest about it, and I definitely don't chase every single female out there. One is enough for me, and she is my wife. The books are a bit of spice for our private time. Tsunade brightened at that confession. Jiraiya snickered. I don't know why you read my books for inspiration when you have definitely been the source of my inspiration. Naruto glowered. I swear, Ero-sensei, you have no idea how lucky you are to still have your balls. If she succeeded in tracking you down after she caught you spying on us. He trailed off ominously. Jiraiya tittered. Tee-hee-hee. You forget, Naruto, I am a Sannin. An expert at espionage and escape. And she is an S-class kunoichi on the trail of a self-proclaimed super pervert and writer of porn who peeked on her during an intimate encounter for the sole purpose of getting inspiration for his next book. Naruto replied deadpan. The male shinobis with one exception shuddered as one. But you distracted her just fine, my deshi. Jiraiya giggled perversely. Naruto shook his head and looked at Tsunade. Just keep an eye on him, Ba-chan. She might have put it behind, but not if he continues to act like this. Hiroshi looked peculiarly at his successor. Do you mean to tell me Jiraiya actually used you in his books? Naruto shrugged, a fluid movement. Yeah, but I'm not telling you which ones. Tsunade looked intrigued. Naruto, is it possible to meet your wife? The blonde looked around. She isn't here yet. Probably running late. Tell me a little about her. Tsunade urged. Naruto's expression softened. A warm glow filled his being. She is mine, Ba-chan. She completes me in a way I've never felt before. With her I feel I can do anything. She doesn't hit me or ignore me like Sakura. She doesn't follow public opinion like most women in Konoha. She would never blindly obey orders from someone higher in the command chain like Hinata. She is iron-willed enough to create and follow her own path. She is strong, in heart, mind, body and soul. With her by my side I know I can do anything. And you have. Hiroshi chuckled softly. He caught Tsunade's eye. His wife is also his old field partner. Understanding dawned. Hanashin. Hiroshi hummed his assent. Aka Arashi and Hanashin. Hammer and scalpel. Power and elegance. The perfect team. On and off the field. The Mizukage looked intrigued. Is it possible to meet her? Naruto's head perked. She'll be here in 15 minutes. He smiled at Hiroshi. She is doing a circuit and moving in slowly. Several Konoha junins froze from their spot behind a screen of potted plants. The old adage eavesdroppers hear nothing good about themselves was definitely true. Sakura blinked rapidly to stop the tears. She could not shout and say it was a lie because it was true. She hit and yelled at Naruto practically every day during their years as genin teammates and even after. Sasuke wanted to know if she really as strong as Naruto described, as the reports and analysts extrapolated. He wanted to know so much. Did Naruto hold back when they were genin? Chunin? After Sasuke's return to Konoha? How much power and skill did he really have to be so openly desired to be caged to a village that he was not born to? Sasuke had heard of aka Arashi like most shinobis, but he had never seen the shinobi. Only the remnants of his battle sites. What kind of jutsus did Naruto create to have wreaked such havoc? Neji shook his head sadly about the harsh truth concerning his cousin. His cousin had admired and claimed to love Naruto, but in the end she bowed down to the demands of the clan she wished to change. And nothing changed. Perhaps if she stayed true to her heart things would have changed. For the better. For everyone. But now it was too late, that chance was gone. Shikamaru wondered if Naruto's wife Hinashin as troublesome as Ino and Temari. All women were. But then again Naruto was the sort to enjoy chaos. Hell, he created plenty of it when they were younger. Shino was certain there were more bombshells to come. Always were when Naruto was involved. He wondered if Naruto's wife shared some of his abilities. Abarame's and Inuzuka's were able to bestow a gift. Share some of their abilities with truly compatible spouses from outside the clan. Did Naruto share such a tie with the one he had chosen? Kurenai struggled to form a counter to undermine the accusation about Konohan women being weak-willed and failed. All of them gave way to public opinion. The only females who stood by Naruto were perhaps the Godem, her assistant, and the ramen stand's daughter Ichiraku Ayame. Kakashi wanted to laugh and cry. The student he ignored, the son of his sensei and Hokage, had earned the respect of an entire village to be named Kage. He had created his own legend in the shinobi world by creating his own unique techniques that earned him the name of aka Arashi. And Jiraiya had used him and his wife as inspirations. He made a resolution to read his old volumes and figure out in which ones the Sannin used Naruto and his wife. Inochi wondered what sort of woman would marry a Jinchuriki. What sort of woman would be willing to trust a Jinchuriki in the heat of passion? Did she desire the status and power he had accumulated, or did she truly care for him? It would not be easy to live a lie and maintain that facade around one with the preternatural senses and abilities of a Biju. Shikaku considered the possibility of co-opting Naruto's wife and discarded the idea. Akunoichi, as renowned as Hinashin, would be ruthless in handling any assassins or attempts at blackmail. Naruto turned to the screen of plants and spoke in louder tones. Hokage-sama, I think I have to make things clear about Kumo's future relationship with Konoha. It would help to have those who could each make independent reports to Konoha's council so there are no misassumptions. Please ask your nins to step forward and hear me. Blue eyes were glacial as he watched his once friends and comrades, his supposed sensei, emerge from the greenery. He refused to let compassion soften his words or blunt his resolve. You will return to Konoha and give your reports, so there is no doubt. Kumo will never ally with Konoha. We will not sign any neutrality or trade treaty with Konoha. Our only contact will be when our shinobis are on opposite sides during a mission or during the Chunin exams. Tell your council if Konoha dares to attack Kumo, we will retaliate with full force. I accepted and tolerated your scorn, hatred, and attacks when it was just me involved, but now I am no longer alone. I have a family and a village full of shinobis and civilians to protect. I will not tolerate anyone that threatens me and mine. If you send one assassin, I will send 5. If your Anbu take out one Kumo patrol, I will order my shinobi to wipe out 5 of your patrols. Any attempts at espionage and infiltration will not be tolerated. Do not expect us to return the corpses. If you wish to manipulate other villages against Kumo, feel free. If you can. Blue eyes were coldly amused. The tactics of the Sandaime Hokage are very common knowledge today, and none of the fools in Konoha have the intellect or subtlety to carry out a similar misinformation strategy on the necessary grand scale. The Junins recoiled with a few exceptions, those who had freely accepted their complicity in the whole mess: Shikamaru, Neji and Shino. Shikamaru waved his hand idly. Don't worry about the council. The daimyo is pissed enough with them. He's already cut a lot of funding, and Tsunade-sama has passed the debit by slashing a lot of their pet projects and private campaigns. He smirked. Nice job on Ne. Naruto smiled, a fractional bit warmer. Thank you, Shikamaru. The shogi lessons and strategy games Ero Sennin insisted on kind of grew on me. I had hoped to play a few games with you but never could get in touch. Shikamaru stilled. It had been a busy time in his life. He had received his Junin rank and been pushed into field duty by his usually laid-back father. He barely had any time or energy to stay in touch with his friends. It had been too easy to put it off. Naruto smirked. Shikamaru was connecting the dots. The usually placid strategist was glaring at his cringing father. Neji bowed his head. I feel I must apologize for Hinata-sama. Naruto shook his head. Never apologize for another. It is something they should do. It isn't something to be delegated. Hinata made her choice. She chose her clan. I still don't think it was the best decision she could have made. Shino sighed and nodded his assent. For a time it seemed she had reconciled with her father and passed the Junin exam, but it was for nothing. A few years after you left, her sister was declared heiress. Tsunade-sama refused to let the elders use the birdcage seal since she was too old. She's trained as a medic nin, but she never takes assignments outside Konoha. Naruto snorted. Figures. He shook his head. Clans like that are control freaks. They'd rather break their children than risk changing status quo. If the Uchihas originated from the Hyuga, it is no wonder Itachi rebelled. Sasuke stiffened. Itachi was a mad man. Itachi had very good reason. Naruto countered mildly. You are just stirring up trouble. Like you always do. Sakura accused wildly. Everyone stared at the new raikage. What do you mean? Tsunade asked hesitantly, looking at Jiraiya, who looked away pointedly. A sinking feeling filled her gut. Jiraiya knew about it and he had not told her. Probably because Naruto asked him not to. What other secrets, little bombshells, did Jiraiya keep mum about? Naruto hesitated before he answered. His eyes were level with Sasuke. I'm not lying here. I'm only telling you what I've been told. Your clan elders. They did things to Itachi. Everyone stiffened. Uchiha Itachi was a prodigy. Was it because of an illegal experiment? Something based on Orochimaru's philosophies? Naruto chewed on his lower lip. I met Itachi a few years after I left Konoha and we talked a bit. I don't know the full details about the mess, but honestly it makes me very happy the Raikage has more freedom to interfere in clan matters than the Hokage. Blue eyes were open. You can choose to disbelieve me, but as far as I'm concerned your clan got what was coming to them. It was unfortunate, the way Itachi chose to accomplish that. Killing everyone including the civilians and torturing you psychologically. I would have settled for killing the elders and adult nins, blinding all the adults and sealing the chakra vessels of every single Uchiha. He smiled faintly. In another world and another time we would have been the best of friends, brothers. I hope you find the peace you are looking for. Tsunade frowned. Can you give us any details, Naruto? Naruto snorted. If you want proof, go digging for it yourself. There should be records in the Uchiha district and the Anbu archives. What Itachi told me was strictly in confidence and I will not betray that trust. You are not my cage and I owe you nothing. Tsunade stilled her recoil and nodded. What he said was the honest truth. Naruto closed his eyes briefly. If you find out what I'm talking about, feel free to visit Kumo. Depending on my mood we may or may not talk. Then he turned to his old Junin sensei. Kakashi, I have nothing to say to you. You are less than scum to me. He snorted. See underneath the underneath. Never abandon your comrades. Too bad you never follow your own advice. The copy nin took the verbal blows stoically. It was what he deserved. He had betrayed his teacher, his own ideals, his students. Naruto glanced at Sakura, feeling completely indifferent towards the pink-haired Kunoichi. It was hard to believe once upon a time he had been so desperately in love with her. His head tilted to one side as he studied the fidgeting Kunoichi. Haruno Sakura, I have no idea what I ever saw in you. I'd say you are a bitch, but you don't even have a bitch's loyalty. Except when it concerns your beloved, Sasuke-kun. He mimed in a high-pitched falsetto. He ignored her flinch and fresh tears and Kurenai's stilted motion to comfort the younger woman. You know what? You should apply for a seat on Konoha's council, because you are definitely a parasitic leech like the rest of them. He turned to Shino and smiled more warmly. Do you know what you are going to tell your student? Shino sighed. Everything. The more the council lies and tries to hide the truth, the more evident it will be. If things are to change, it will start with the young ones. Naruto chuckled. Oh yeah. Talk to Konohamaru and his crew. He is young and a bit hot-headed, but last I heard from him it looked like he was developing the same strategic mindsets like his uncle and grandfather. He grinned. I sometimes send letters to him via Gamakichi. Jiraiya blinked and chuckled. I wondered why the brat begged to sign the frog contract when he had Sarutobi-sensei's 8 contract. I was shocked when Gamabunta and Enma agreed in the first place. It is rare to have dual summons. Naruto shrugged fluidly. I talked to Gamabunta. Konohamaru agreed to never summon any frog higher than Gamakichi. Unlike the usual contracts, this has a time limit of 20 years. At the end it will be renewed or expire. To-san. A high-pitched childish squeal cut through the conversational hum. Naruto turned away, a wide smile spreading across his face before he took 2 quick steps and crouched down, arms open wide. A small black-haired form clad in dark blue barreled through the crowd straight at the Rokudame Raikage. Naruto laughed as he easily adjusted for the impact rising from his crouch, one arm braced behind the boy's legs as he lifted him up so their faces were level. Got you, Ryuchi. Sasuke, Kurenai, and Shino froze seeing the familiar face of a particular little boy. Sasuke's mind went blank. The boy was an Uchiha, a born genius capable of using the Sharingan. His father was Naruto, who was given the title of the #1 unpredictable ninja by Kakashi. Naruto had gotten ahead of him in resurrecting his clan. But Ryuchi's clan was not Uchiha, it was Namikaze, the clan of his father the Rokudame Raikage, and his grandfather the Yondaime Hokage. Kurenai could have burst into tears and cried as she realized the full implications of the situation. But she didn't. She was a kunoichi and trained to control all displays of emotion, so she did not make a sound as her psyche absorbed yet another blow. The Sharingan Kekai Genkai was lost to Konoha unless Sasuke chose to have children. The Namikaze legacy of the Yondaime was lost, driven away by Konoha's own actions. What have I told you about running at gatherings? Naruto scolded the boy, though his heart clearly wasn't in it. Don't run because shinobis have fast reflexes. The boy dutifully recited in a sing-song fashion before brightening. But if they have good reflexes they can get out of the way. Naruto chuckled. Like you did a few weeks ago? You depend too much on being able to predict others. If you don't stop I will seal your dojutsu. Tsunade frowned. Naruto. Stop threatening the poor boy. That's a job for his parents. The pair blinked mildly at the Hokage before the older one coughed discreetly. Oba-chan, you know how I said you really are an Oba-chan? Yes? Tsunade was getting confused. What was the brat getting at? Naruto patted the boy's back. This is one reason why you are an Obaa-chan. This is my son, Namikaze Ryuchi. Pieces began to shift in Tsunade's mind. Ryuchi was not a very common name. The description fit. Sealing your dojutsu? Ryuchi peeked at the Hokage, feeling a bit shy. To-san, why do you call her Obaa-chan? Because she is really old. She was on the same genin team as Jiraiya Jii-san. Ryuchi blinked. Red bled into black irises and tomos swirled in each eye. Sakura hissed. Sharingan. The boy blinked again, deactivating the dojutsu. To-san is right. You really are an Obaa-chan. Tsunade was torn between laughter and fits. Laughter won out. Figured the Gaki's son would be just as smart-mouthed as him. Then something else clicked. Your wife. That's all for now. If you enjoy it then please like, share and do comments.